or Die, presented by Super Draft. Dave Lochran with me, Adam Scher. Glad to have you guys with us as always to break down this 6-game slate on a Wednesday night. How you doing, man?
Doing good. I'm really enjoying this stretch of days where we have like 6 to 8 games. It's always those are like my favorite to talk about and to play.
I like them too, except this one, everything I put together, everything I crunch, I feel super uncomfortable about it.
Which I agree. We were talking about it a bunch before the show, but at the same time, those tend to be pretty good slates too. So as
No
far
question.
as being able to make money, so not the worst thing in the world.
Not at all. Yeah, it doesn't mean you're not going to play. It just means, I don't feel wildly comfortable with it. But here we are talking about it anyway. And we got 6 games to break down. Before we do, I'll ask you the same thing. Like I said, it's kind of a strange slate in that there is some value. It's just not great value. And we're going to have to kind of sift through the good and the bad. Where are you looking at well, actually, not even that. Is this a stars scrub slate for you? Do you see yourself paying all the way up to the top? Obviously, on DraftKings, James Harden's price is absurd. I know he hasn't played great lately, but how are you approaching this slate?
Yeah, so I think that it's kind of weird because there's not a whole lot to pay up for in terms of salary. Like even if Harden plays, he's 10-5 on DraftKings, 10-7 on Fanduel. Westbrook's your most expensive player on Fanduel at 11K. So you don't have any of those like 12-3 Luka type guys. There's not a ton of really good cheap value either, but because of the top end pricing, it's not really that difficult to get a cheap value guy or two in there and then have a pretty balanced lineup, but still get to like one upper tier guy like Harden or someone like that. So kind of a weird slate roster construction wise, I think.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Let's just dive into it then. We've got Indiana at home hosting the Chicago Bulls. Victor Oladipo making his long-awaited return. He's going to be on a limit. I don't know exactly what that limit will be, but he's certainly not going to play a ton. I think I have him at like 18 or 20 minutes. And they just have, a ton of guards and wings already on this team, so it just makes it a little bit more complex. 213.5 total on the slate, lowest on the slate, actually. Pacers 9.5-point favorites against the Bulls. What are we doing now that Oladipo is back? Look, I get that it's not a ton of minutes, but when he's out there, it's not like 20 minutes from Aaron Holiday or Justin Holiday. It's 20 minutes from, the guy that should be their highest usage player going forward.
Right. It should make whoever's playing with the second unit, their rate should drop. Like if Turner's in, normally you're going to get Sabonis out there with the second unit. And in the past, he was putting up, really productive numbers in those situations. The usage should come down with Oladipo out there. But overall, at this point, it's not affecting too much for me because, again, I have him at 18 minutes. They've said he's coming off the bench and playing short bursts. So I think 16 to 20 minutes makes sense. It's not enough for me to, completely like overhaul my projections for guys like Sabonis or Brogdon if he's in, but it does likely take away a little bit of that second unit production for anyone that's out there. And it also makes it so guys like Aaron Holiday, potentially Jeremy Lamb, have a tougher path to minutes.
Okay. Well, is there anything from Indiana that you like right now a lot? Like I said, it's going to be weird. Even if he doesn't play a ton of minutes in his first game back, it's going to be something that we kind of have to tiptoe around in terms of getting to the right players, because guys like Lamb and Warren should, whether it's from a minute standpoint or a usage standpoint, certainly suffer. We're also waiting on Malcolm Brogdon. But how about the likes of Domantas Sabonis here, who's played really well? His price has come up, but he's played phenomenally, even coming off a triple-double, was two assists shy of one the previous game, and the rest of this front court.
Yeah, so like you said, waiting on Brogdon news, also waiting on Miles Turner, who is listed as a game-time decision. He missed practice yesterday, missed their previous game as well. My assumption right now is that Brogdon plays and Turner doesn't. Obviously, with this being the first game of the night, we'll have that information, but for the purposes of talking about it, that's how I have it broken down. And I still am interested in Sabonis, even with Brogdon back. On FanDuel, he's really cheap at $8,500. On DraftKings, his price tag came up to $9,400, but this season, he's played about 300 minutes with Malcolm Brogdon on the floor without either of Turner or Goga. So playing center, alongside Brogdon, he's averaged 1.25 DraftKings points per minute over those minutes. We saw him play 41 minutes against Portland. I think that at least getting 36 to 37 minutes is very reasonable here. It's a solid matchup against a banged up Chicago front court that is starting Luke Kornet at center. So I do think it's a good spot for Sabonis. He should be easier to get to on FanDuel, but I'm getting to him even at 9,400 on DraftKings. And then you have a really favorable price on Brogdon on DraftKings at only 6,600. It's obviously harder to come by value on DraftKings because the pricing isn't as soft as it is on FanDuel. So Brogdon at 6,600, if you assume he's going to play somewhere around, I have him in for 31 minutes. I have him, for 1.14 DraftKings points per minute, which at that salary is pretty affordable. So really stacked guard position makes it so it's tough to get him in tons of lineups, but I do think he's a little bit underpriced, assuming he's back.
Does Oladipo returning wipe out the rest of this team from a fantasy perspective? Pretty
much. So again, assuming Brogdon is in, it does for me, because if you're giving around 18 minutes to Oladipo, you assume Justin Holiday is still in the rotation. You assume Aaron Holiday still gets at least some minutes. It's tough to confidently give Jeremy Lamb more than, say, 26 minutes. Whereas
McConnell might play another 10, 13 minutes too, honestly.
Who's that?
He played really good basketball.
Who did you say?
I said McConnell, for all we know, is still in the rotation, gets 10, 13 minutes with the way he's played.
Right. Like the way I have him backing up Brogdon. And then I have, Oladipo getting 18. I have Holiday getting like 12. So it basically takes, assuming Brogdon's back, it takes the appeal away from pretty much everyone other than Sabonis and Brogdon for me.
Okay. Yeah. And look, to be honest, it's not that often that the wing players on this Pacers team were really heavily in play anyway.
Right. And like last game was one where you saw it on Lamb, but he was only like 4,400 that game. And because of injuries, it was really easy to see how he was going to get a lot of minutes. That's not the case with Oladipo back. Plus his salary jumped to 5,800, 5,200. TJ Warren is in at 5,800, played 30 minutes last game, but with Brogdon on the floor this year, 22% usage rate, doesn't contribute much in the way of peripherals. It's not really a fast-paced game. So I'm not really getting there. And again, it's just, he's another guy where I expect him to play 30 to 32 minutes, but it's really easy to see how he could potentially play less if, a handful of other guys are playing well and take those minutes, now that you're giving minutes to Oladipo as well.
It's getting a little bit outrageous how now literally every Bulls player is questionable every night. I mean,
yeah. Well, I always forget that they're questionable, and then we start getting the updates at like 6:30, just listing them all in.
The whole team, yeah,
right.
The entire team. They have the Q tag, but they're all going to play. It's really ridiculous. Anyway, they're on the other side of this game. They're almost double-digit dogs here. Lauri Markkanen remains out. Wendell Carter's out. Gafford's out. I mean, most of their front court is out. Luke Kornet's questionable, but he's actually probable. He played 31 minutes last game. Produced just over a fantasy point per minute, but you've got him at a price point where if you're hoping he can do that again, there's just literally no meat left on the bone when it comes to Luke Kornet. Not for me, at least, not against Indiana. Really the bulk of this team to me, for the purpose, whether it's price point or they're just not very good, isn't really in play. But I guess we'll start with Zach LaVine, whose price has come down on DraftKings $1,200 since his last game.
He's the only guy on DraftKings that looks actually appealing to me. It's not a matchup that I like. It's reflected in the 102 team total for Chicago, but it's a quality Indiana defense. It's a slow Indiana team, but Zach LaVine is the highest usage guy by a wide margin on this team. He has, without Markkanen on the floor, a 35% usage rate. Without Markkanen and Carter. And he's playing big minutes in competitive games. So he has a really high ceiling, and I think the price tag is pretty affordable. There's guys around him that I like a little bit more, but I think it's a good price point there. For the rest of the guys, Satoransky at 4,900. Chris Dunn's coming off a 34-minute game, but he's sitting at 5,500, which is a pretty mediocre salary. And then Kobe White at 3,900. There's the potential for them to do well, but it's nothing that I'm confident in. Their median projections don't look very good to me. So it's pretty much LaVine that I'm getting to. If I'm playing 150 lineups, then I mix in a little bit of like $3,900 Kobe White. That's fine, but it's not someone that my night's going to be revolving around at all.
Yeah, I'd certainly hope not. Look, not only that, but they also have, I think, the lowest total on the slate by 5 points It's just it's not a very enticing team. I think there's some spots where, like, again, $8,600 Zach LaVine is not crazy. I also don't have him as a priority either. He's all right. If there's anybody there, like you said, yeah, that's who I would be getting to. Let's move on to the Knicks and Grizzlies. So you've got the Knicks here at home against the Grizzlies. 2.5 point dogs. Grizzlies have actually played pretty decent basketball. They're 2.5 point favorites on the road, 222 total on the game. We'll start with the Knicks side of the ball. I guess if there's one thing we could say is that you're seeing consistent minutes from, Mike Miller's giving these guys consistent minutes, from the Paytons above 30 to Julius Randle to Marcus Morris, all getting that consistent run. The center rotation is predictably a mess, but it's one that I'd really like to stay away from anyway. What are you doing with the Knicks?
Not so. I think it's an appealing game, more so than the one we had last night. Memphis is the fourth fastest team in the league over the last month, so a nice pace-up spot for the Knicks. Julius Randle is my favorite guy from the Knicks, but the salary on DraftKings has come up to 8,300, which on this slate it's tough to get there a ton, just because there are so many guys kind of in that price range that look really good and a lack of value. 7,500 on FanDuel is a really good salary, but I'm coming in pretty much around the field where we have them projected right now. It just doesn't seem like a spot where I think there's a huge edge to fading him, or a huge edge to being overweight. It just seems, like he's being owned, or projected to be owned, how he should be here. Same goes for Marcus Morris, who's playing big minutes. I have him projected for about 35 minutes as well. Second on the team in usage behind Randall at 25%, but his salaries come up a little bit too. So I'm okay getting to some of him, but another guy where I just don't see myself taking a strong stand one way or the other.
So we got some news here. Malcolm Brogdon is in. Miles Turner is out.
Okay, that's what I was expecting.
So yeah, you've got Jakar Sampson starting. One of the least impressive per minute guys you're ever going to find. So just to backtrack there for a second, any additional thoughts here with Turner out?
No, that's exactly how I projected it when I did the game. I had Brogdon in, I had Turner out, and I had Sampson starting. So
okay. Oladipo limited to 24 minutes today. That's actually more than I had him at.
Yeah, that's a lot more than I expected.
I had him, I think 17 or 18.
Yeah, I had 18.
Yeah. So, I mean, I honestly don't know how. So first of all, he's coming off the bench.
Right.
I'm assuming him and Lamb both play 24 minutes.
I have Lamb at 26. Yeah. I mean, it does. The thing is, it doesn't make a big difference to me. Like, I'm still not paying $6K for Oladipo.
No, of course not.
And
you don't want Jeremy Lamb either.
I wasn't going to Lamb anyway. So
right.
and if I take, like, I wasn't playing Holiday, I wasn't playing any of these guys that are potentially affected. So it doesn't really matter to me.
Is minimum salary Jakar Sampson?
No.
Okay. I got to ask you. He is not very good.
I have him in for like 16 minutes.
Yeah.
Like maybe he plays 20, but who cares?
You think with Turner out though, do you think now you just see a shift upwards and Warren gets more at the 4?
I think that's possible, but you also have McDermott, who just played 30 minutes. Right. So I have, with Oladipo coming back, that is one thing that I did. If you look at the game against Portland, you basically got Sampson and McDermott playing those minutes. Now I have Sampson playing a little bit fewer minutes. I have McDermott playing a little bit fewer minutes, and then I have Warren getting more minutes at the 4 in order to get those Oladipo minutes in.
Andre asked, what about Oladipo at 4K on FanDuel?
That's obviously a much better price point. The thing that's tough there is that you still have FanDuel in general just has so many guys underpriced. And whenever you're talking about someone that's on a minutes limit, like Oladipo is I think a good point per dollar play now at 4K on FanDuel. The problem you run into though is if he plays 22, 23 minutes, it's really unlikely that he gives you the raw points that really help you win. So it's more about him opening up other stuff in your lineup. But because of how soft the pricing is on FanDuel, there's less value in that since there's a lot of different options to do that. So I think that if you're playing 150 lineups on FanDuel, having some Oladipo is fine, but it still wouldn't be like a building block for me. And then again, on DraftKings, I'm just not there.
Skylar says, what about Oladipo at the minimum on Yahoo? I mean,
That's fine. Play Oladipo.
Minimum salary on Yahoo is not a tough decision to make. If you want to jam Oladipo into lineups, I would definitely say he's well worth doing that. Look, consider this too. Like last year, he was averaging like I think 1.15 fantasy point, 1.17 fantasy points per minute. It's on DraftKings. There's a very good chance that Oladipo could come out here and give you 30 plus in 24 minutes. Now, because he's limited to 24 minutes mean he's actually going to play 24 minutes? No, he's been out for a while, and we just got news. We already knew this, but he's going to be limited all the way up until the All-Star break. So, there's also a very distinct possibility that he only plays 19 minutes. Right.
I was going to say just. The announced minutes limit is higher than I expected, but it's not like they said we're aiming to get him 24 minutes either. Right. So, you certainly could see less, which would be another drawback. And I don't remember what happened last year, but weren't they like really aggressive with him coming back from an injury and then he got hurt again, like badly?
Yeah, he re-injured the knee, right?
He tore his quad, is what it was.
Was it his quad?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I'm almost positive.
In his return from a previous injury?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I don't remember that. I mean, I believe you. I just don't remember it as it happened. This game
ruptured right quad tendon.
Okay? Was it a quad that he was dealing with before though?
I don't think.
Wasn't it a knee?
So. I think it was a knee before.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense then. Yeah. Okay. Look, if he's
because that's like the worst injury you can have.
What's that? The quad is?
Yeah, it's like that and the Achilles.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. I remember DeMarcus Cousins blowing his out and being back in like 3 weeks.
Right.
You could see that thing recoil back up into it. You remember that?
Yeah. Yep.
Was that that was the playoffs, right?
Well, was it?
It was
his
before
Achilles,
the playoffs.
Right?
Going.
It was Cousins' Achilles.
Right, but before the Achilles, it was the hams or it was the quad muscle. Or was
right. Yeah. I do.
Remember? Yeah, it was the quad. Yeah. You saw it pop up. And then I think in the first or second game of the postseason, I thought it was his Achilles.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Either way, it was shortly after he returned from that quad. I remember that. But anyway, let's move it back to New York. Is there? I don't have any. Like you said, it is a somewhat appealing matchup. There's just nobody that I'm dying to get in lineups from the New York Knicks, and honestly, some of that just comes down again to the price point. Some of these guys are just a little bit too expensive for me. Kawhisenberg says I have it back. How would I have it backwards?
You do have it backwards.
Oh,
he tore the Achilles with the Pelicans, and then he came back and tore the quad.
Missed almost the whole season. Hurt his quad.
Yep.
And but he hurt his quad, and then he came back.
Yeah.
Did he get hurt again, or did he get that domestic abuse or some catch a case?
He's just permanently hurt. Then he tore his ACL.
Oh, that's what it was. Okay.
That's okay. So Achilles, quad, ACL.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then he pulled a gun on someone. He did something. I forget what he did. I think he said he was going to kill someone. But all right. Back to the topic at hand. Anything else for the Knicks?
No.
How about Memphis? Dylan Brooks, man. Guy's playing pretty good basketball. Second of a back-to-back today. They beat up on the Nuggets yesterday. And you basically got underwhelming games from guys like Jaren Jackson. Jonas Valanciunas had a solid monster. I won't say a monster game, but a very solid game. Played 34 minutes. You just have such a difficult time projecting his minutes. DeAnthony Melton had been playing 20-plus minutes a night. He is going to be out for this one. But you've got Jay Crowder off the injury report. He's going to be returning. So a little bit of a mix-up in this rotation. Not sure how big of an effect it has. Probably Guderick gets some more minutes. Tyus Jones gets a few more minutes. I don't know how much of a difference it really makes.
Yeah, I mean, he was out last night too. It didn't really matter. Yeah. Guderick played like 14. John Concher played like 12, I think it was. Crowder back. I have him in for 26 minutes, which looks, decent at 4,400 on DraftKings. But the spot for Memphis that I'm most interested in is Valanciunas, coming off that good game last night. As you said, the minutes are tough to project because they've just been all over the place, but we have gotten a little bit better floor out of his minutes recently. He's played at least 25 minutes in 7 of his last 10, and it's a big Knicks front court, so you're not really concerned about him getting shot off the floor. And he's just cheap enough where if I give him 28 minutes, he's a really, really good play. And then knowing that there's the potential for a little bit more is appealing as well. 6,400 on DraftKings. He's one of my favorite plays. We don't even have him getting a ton of ownership right now, which I would love for that to hold. 6,500 on Fanduel is a really good price as well. Obviously, you have a little bit more opportunity cost there since you have a really cheap Jakob Poeltl, and then you also have Whiteside and Drummond at the top. But I think Valanciunas is a great option. Beyond that, you have Jaren Jackson and John Morant both as secondary guys for me, in addition to Crowder. Brooks, like you said, playing really, really well. Should get low 30s in minutes at least. 27.5% usage rate over the last month for Brooks. But the salary is getting really expensive, and it's not like the Knicks are a particularly fast-paced team, even though they suck defensively. So not getting to a ton of Brooks.
Okay. Do you want to move on to the next one?
I do.
All right, let's do it. Hey, by the way, Super Draft is the sponsor of the Deeper Dive. Running the Live Before Lock show up till 7:30 again today, so you can get in on that 7:30 p.m. Eastern lock over at superdraft.com. $20,000 jump shot tonight. You got 4K up top to first place. It's the multiplier mode, no salaries. So each player has a fantasy point multiplier attached to their name. Somebody like Harden would be 1x. I'm assuming Westbrook is 1x as well. Yeah, they both are. Lillard 1.1. You work your way down a little bit more, and you've got guys like John Morant at 1.5, McCollum at 1.5. Some good quote unquote value here for sure. There's no salaries, but you're multiplying whatever their fantasy point production is by that one whatever X multiplier. So keep that in mind when you're playing. It's a really fun format. You can get $20 in free super cash with your first deposit of $100 or more. All you have to do is sign up using the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. That's AWESEMO to get $20 in free super cash with your first deposit of $100 or more. Super Draft, go. You can download it on the App Store or go to superdraft.io. No salary cap, none of that. The multiplier mode, it's in, man. It's the new thing. You should definitely check it out. Super Draft, sponsor of the Deeper Dive. All right, Brooklyn and Detroit. Let's hit this one. We've got the Nets as pretty sizable favorites here, 6.5, 227 total in Brooklyn. I guess we can start with this. I mentioned to you earlier today that Kyrie Irving wasn't on the injury list, but then Kenny Atkinson is like, well, I'm not going to speak for him. I'll let him determine whether he wants to play or not. We don't have confirmation, but he's expected to play. It was just a very weird thing this morning where you're not on the injury report, but your coach isn't commenting on your status.
Yeah, expected to play, I guess. Like you said, full practice yesterday. Obviously didn't play their game the other day after the Kobe news, but it seems relatively safe to assume that he's in.
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, there's no reason to believe that he won't be. What do you make of the minutes here for the backcourt, assuming Dinwiddie goes back to the bench?
Yeah, so assuming Dinwiddie goes back to the bench, I still think you get around 31, 32 minutes from Dinwiddie. I expect him to be in the closing lineup over Garrett Temple. Kyrie should play as much as Kyrie wants to play, so 34. I have him in for 34 minutes. And then with Karis LeVert, unfortunately, we haven't seen him closing over Joe Harris like I kind of expected him to. So I only have him in for 24 minutes, but he does at least carry the upside where if he is playing really well, I would expect him to at least close the games where he's playing well. We know he's allowed to play like 28 minutes. It's just that with everyone healthy, he's typically playing 23, 24.
I have him at 24 minutes, and I'm still getting a little Karis LeVert.
Yeah, so am I. It's for me, it's a function of the lack of value on the slate and the fact that he's not projected for a ton of ownership, and it's a good spot. He's been playing really poorly. He's not a great shooter anyway, but he's shooting worse this year than he did last year by a few percentage points. That's something that I'm not too concerned about, though, because you expect that to turn around eventually, and his salary is basically at rock bottom. So if you give me a guy at 4,500 and not a ton of ownership, that has the potential to go out there and shoot the ball 14, 15 times, I'll take my chances there.
Yeah, no question. I mean, you're not going anywhere near the guy in tournament or in cash lineups, but tournaments, it makes a lot of sense knowing that if he starts running hot, you would hope Atkinson keeps him out there. At least that's what we've seen him do in the past.
Right. I fully expect the closing lineup for Brooklyn, as long as everyone's healthy going forward, to essentially be Kyrie, Dinwiddie, whoever's playing better of Harris and LeVert, whoever's playing better of Prince Chandler, whoever's playing better of Allen Jordan.
Pretty much. And that's what makes this team kind of difficult. I don't know. I have Irving at 33 minutes, and I think I have Dinwiddie at 32 because I expect him to play a lot off the bench. But how much do you have of this Brooklyn backcourt?
A lot of Kyrie, not much Dinwiddie. He's still priced up as a result of all the time he's played without Kyrie out there. So I'm not getting to him at a deep guard position, but I love Kyrie here. For one, it's a good matchup. Detroit has been below average defense all season long, but you also have Kyrie, who's averaged 1.4 DraftKings points per minute this year. And for probably the first time ever, I actually mentioned the narrative in the deep dive article too, because it's not a big factor, but if I am going to put any weight into narratives, it's in situations like this where it's the NBA. So these guys actually can control their opportunities, and you have,
unless you're Kyle Singler.
Yeah. Star NBA players can control their opportunities. And you have Kyrie, playing his first game after, after Kobe died, which it was, a huge deal to him. So it wouldn't be surprising at all to see him shoot even more than normal. But the thing that, so it's kind of like the narrative certainly doesn't hurt, but even if you don't factor that in, you're talking about Kyrie in a good matchup at a pretty affordable price tag. So I think it all looks really good for Kyrie.
Are you bumping his usage?
I did a little bit, yeah.
What do you got him at?
Like 30. I went with his season average, which was like 32.5%. But I think that is a little bit of a bump because when you consider Dinwiddie and LeVert both being healthy right now, I think his normal usage will be closer to 30.
For sure. Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense too. You're right. 32.5 is where he's at, 32.6 or so on the season. So yeah, I like that. The rest of Brooklyn, it doesn't do all that much for me though. Like Taurean Prince, even if he is running hot, which is possible, I don't see him getting above, 31 minutes. And it's not like he's been electric anyway. Wilson Chandler has come in and taken some of those minutes away since he got healthy, or was he suspended? I don't even remember. It doesn't really matter. But the rest of Brooklyn, when it comes to non-Kyrie Irving, not even Dinwiddie, like you said, he's overpriced. He's priced up as well. Are you getting to outside of LeVert as well? Are you getting to anybody else here?
Not much. I'm around the field on a 5K Taurean Prince, which isn't he's not projected for high ownership, and I'm not getting a lot of him. If DeAndre Jordan were cheaper on DraftKings, I'd have some interest. I think that he's just a little bit more expensive than I would like. It's certainly a matchup where he could get a little bit more run to deal with Andre Drummond's size, assuming Drummond is in. But at 5,200, you kind of need him to get that extra run, and there's no guarantee that he does. So, yeah, I'm not getting to much of Brooklyn outside of Kyrie and LeVert.
How about Detroit? Number one, do you have Andre Drummond being active?
Yeah, I have him in for now.
Okay. I mean, he's gone from the eye to the lip, and now he's got this wrist sprain. So it's hard to even keep track of what ailments he's dealing with on a nightly basis.
Yeah, and he's missed games this year that normally you wouldn't expect him to miss, with seemingly minor injuries. So obviously keep a close eye on it. But the good thing is he's missed so many games lately. We have a very good idea of how to approach it if he does miss.
Yep, I would say that's true. What are your thoughts on Drummond tonight?
I think it's a good spot. He's got the size advantage on Jared Allen. It would be an even better spot if DeAndre Jordan weren't back, but he's grabbed at least 20 rebounds in 5 straight games that he's played against Jared Allen. The minutes should still be there, assuming that he's good to go. With Derrick Rose on the floor without Griffin this year, 23.5% usage for Drummond. So he does take a little bit of a usage hit now that Rose is in the starting lineup, but should still grab tons of rebounds and is still involved enough offensively in addition to the steals and blocks that he picks up. And it's a pace-up game. So I think he looks good. The thing that would keep his ownership in check for me is that he is on DraftKings about $1,200 more expensive than Whiteside. He's $3,300 more expensive than Valanciunas. You have Jakob Poeltl probably playing big minutes here. So there are a lot of centers where you can save some money. And then comparing across positions, if we assume a $10,500 James Harden is in, I would rather have that. If Harden is out, I would rather have Westbrook than Drummond. I'd rather have Kyrie than Drummond by a little bit. So it's a price point that's kind of hard to get to, but I do think it's a really good spot if you can somehow find the way to get him in.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say the same thing. There's not really when it comes to prioritizing him, it's a little bit difficult. Would you put him over Lillard?
Yes.
You would? Okay. With Lillard's price point up, CJ McCollum back in the lineup.
Yeah, I have him and Lillard projected similarly, but Lillard's more expensive.
Okay. How about guys like Reggie Jackson, who, I don't know, Derrick Rose was out last game, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to project here, but he played 25 minutes, 23 before that, 19, 15. If you put Reggie Jackson around 25 minutes, you're probably going to get, a little bit of him against Brooklyn, especially knowing that in the games that he has played, he's been very active as a shooter.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of him here, especially because we don't have him projected for a ton of ownership right now. He started 2 games ago alongside Rose, and then last game, obviously, with Rose out, he started. But the big thing for me is the uptick in minutes, going from 19 to 23 to 25. I have him at 26 minutes here. And his salary is still cheap enough, especially on a slate that doesn't have a lot of great value, where it's a pace-up spot. Last year, he averaged 0.92 DraftKings points per minute with about a 25% usage rate. This year, it's even higher than that. As he plays more and those minutes start to come more frequently alongside Rose and Drummond, I expect the usage rate to come down closer to where he was last year. But even if you project him that way, at 4,500, it looks like a pretty good play to me.
Okay. Do you have any interest in the rest of Detroit?
No, I don't. Rose at 7,600, I guess, would be the guy that I went to after Drummond and Jackson. But the reason I don't get there a whole lot is that the guard positions are just stacked today. And so the opportunity cost of getting to a guy in Rose that I think projects pretty, mediocre for his salary. I would rather be going down to someone like Reggie Jackson or finding the money to get up to that tier where you have like Zach LaVine, or even in the same tier as Rose, you have like Chris Paul going against Sacramento. So I'm not really getting to anyone beyond Drummond and Jackson.
Okay. Let's talk about the next game on our list. Well, this one's a mess. Before we do, I want to let you know that the promo code Deeper Dive is the way to get 50% off your first week. Awesemo Plus Platinum membership. Deeper Dive, one word. Go to awesemo.com/join. You can see videos on all of our top tools, our most popular tools, developed and used by Alex Baker, Awesemo himself. And essentially, everything you need to see is right there at awesemo.com/join. If you decide that you want to check it out, use the promo code Deeper Dive for 50% off your first week. Also, Super Bowl, got a Super Bowl promotion here. So LIV 54, but LIV, the promo code gets you a monthly pass, Awesemo Plus Platinum monthly for $54. That's $36 in savings on a monthly pass. So if you use that promo code LIV, you want to get a full month instead, use that at checkout to redeem it. It's valid until February 2nd. All right, so San Antonio and Utah. We've got the Spurs here without LaMarcus Aldridge. Last game was wild because Jakob Poeltl plays 36 minutes. Just a ridiculous amount of minutes. Trey Lyles comes in, plays 26 minutes himself. Who else? Patty Mills, I believe, played 29 minutes, almost 29 minutes. It was pretty incredible to see the amount of run that Pop gave some of these guys that even with Aldridge out, to me, was still surprising. I can't project Poeltl close to 35 because if I do, it's just going to be crazy. But even giving him 30 or 31 minutes, he becomes a pretty appealing play at this price. It's a tough matchup against Utah. Shouldn't be an ultra fast-paced game. But let's go ahead and start actually in the front court here and break this one down because this is where it gets the waters are very muddied with Aldridge out today.
Yeah, I mean, with Poeltl, it's not a spot where I'm comfortable. On Fanduel, he's 4,400, which is a great salary. So all you're really worried about there is that if you roster him, you're not getting Whiteside or Valanciunas or Drummond. But the point per dollar wise, it's a great option. Less appealing on DraftKings at 5,600, but at the same time, there's not a ton of value today. And so I do still think he's a good play there. I have him projected for a couple minutes more than you do, just because barring foul trouble or anything, I think he's going to be out there as much as he can. He's a reasonably productive player. Again, it's not a great matchup, but he does multiple things reasonably well on the floor. So I'm not comfortable getting to a lot of Poeltl, but with the way this slate looks right now, I am. So that's kind of just how I view it. Like it wouldn't be surprising to me at all if he does disappoint at his DraftKings salary, but he still looks better to me than most guys priced around him.
Okay, fair enough. What about Trey Lyles?
Yeah, so I think that's interesting because Lyles and Gay on DraftKings right now, neither one are priced for much ownership. They basically split 48 minutes last game, with Gay playing 21 and a half, Lyles played 26. They're both really cheap, and they're both relatively productive players when they play. For the season, Lyles has averaged 0.84 DraftKings points per minute. Gay has averaged 0.97. I mentioned in the deep dive article today, there's a million ways that this rotation can change and go poorly for either of these guys, in addition to it not being an appealing matchup against the Jazz. But you also just really don't have sub 4K value on DraftKings that's appealing at all. So having the potential for 26 minutes from Lyles or 22 minutes from Gay and getting, expecting 19 to 20 DraftKings points from these guys does make them at least pretty appealing point per dollar options that opens up a lot of stuff for you.
Okay. I think so too. I mean, when you move further down this starting lineup, you get to guys as well like Dante Murray, who really has not played particularly well, but his price continues to come down. What about Murray today?
He's another one where, he's projected for a lot of ownership right now just because of his salary. We have him as the 5th highest owned guy on DraftKings at 24%. I came in right around the field because I don't think that he's not safe. Like, he can play anywhere from 22 to 30 minutes, really.
So what are you giving him? 24?
Yeah, I have him at 24. I have White at 24. I have Forbes at 24, and I have Mills at 24.
Yeah.
So he's got a really wide range of outcomes, which is appealing at his price point because most guys in that range just don't really have a top end, an appealing top end to their range of outcomes, which Murray does. But at his ownership, you normally hate to roster guys that have a floor as low as he does. So I think it makes sense, kind of where he's coming in here. I'm coming in right around the same spot. If he plays well, he should get more minutes, which is at least something that makes him appealing. So given the way the slate looks, I think Murray is okay.
Okay.
I do like, if you're playing like one lineup or something like that and you're getting to a guard in that price range, if projected ownership holds and you have Murray at 24% and Reggie Jackson at 12, I think going to Jackson makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I do too. Not to mention that I guess you run the risk that Murray comes out and plays more minutes than Jackson, but I don't think it's a huge risk there either. Like, if both of them end up at 24 minutes, it wouldn't be a surprise at all.
Right.
Anybody else from San Antonio? Does Patty Mills or any of these other kind of secondary guys pop out to you?
No, I mean, Bryn Forbes is 3,300, so I guess he's worth a mention just because of the lack of value. Jakob Poeltl, I just looked, but Jakob Poeltl actually did get a start last season against Gobert. He played 24 minutes. This was a game where Aldridge was in because you remember last year they weren't running the same lineup as they were this year. But Poeltl played a total of 24 minutes, picked up 22 and a quarter DraftKings points. It doesn't really change anything for me. It's just, something that happened.
Yeah, I mean, if Aldridge was out in that game, maybe a little bit different. But
right.
Yeah, they were running a big front court. I don't think you need to look too much into that.
Yeah, you also had Pau Gasol pick up like 7 minutes in that game, which is worth mentioning because one reason that I have trouble not giving Poeltl a lot of minutes is that they really don't have a backup.
Right. Yeah, who were they using? Me Too?
Yeah.
And I think he got all but like 3 or 4 of the backup center minutes.
I think he got all of them.
I think maybe for some reason I felt like he didn't, but that's besides the point. That's not important. I thought Lyles might have gotten a couple, but I could be wrong. Anyway, let's talk about the Utah side. You mentioned before the show that Mike Conley was somebody that you are getting a decent amount of. Talk to me about why you're getting Conley. I know he's discounted, so we can get into all of that. But yeah, Mike Conley, sub 4K on DraftKings, worth discussing.
Yeah, it's just the price point and his minutes coming up. Since coming back from his injury, he played 15, 18, 18, 19, and then finally last game 25 minutes against the Rockets. And for the season, he's averaged 0.85 DraftKings points per minute. If you expect that you're going to get around 24 to 25 minutes of Mike Conley at 3,800, I think it's pretty appealing. Like 24 to 25 minutes of Mike Conley is more appealing to me than even, Trey Lyles and Rudy Gay on the other side of that game, because facing San Antonio is more appealing than facing Utah. And Mike Conley obviously is better than both of those guys. So, yeah, it's a price play where I hope he doesn't go backwards in minutes. And if he does get around 24 minutes, I should be fine.
All right. Do you have any other interest in Utah today against San Antonio? They're 5.5-point favorites. If it wasn't for Aldridge being out, this game really wouldn't be all that enticing. And by the way, did we talk about DeRozan?
No, we didn't.
We should probably talk about DeRozan first. I got bogged down with all of the other no-namers.
Yeah, DeRozan, I think is fine. I'm not as interested in him today as I was last game. I had tons of him in that one. It's clearly not as appealing a matchup, but at the same time, without Aldridge on the floor this year, DeRozan does have a 32.9% usage rate. He's averaged about 1.2 DraftKings points per minute. So he's fine. I think he's comparable to Zach LaVine at that price point. I would, if I'm playing one lineup and trying to choose between them, I would just go to whichever is lower owned. Overall, across 150 lineups on DraftKings right now, just to give an idea, we have DeRozan at 15% ownership. I have like 20. So another guy where I think the field seems like they're getting it right at the moment.
All right, let's swing this back to Utah. Outside of Mike Conley, what are you doing?
I think Boyan Bogdanovich is appealing. He's still reasonably priced. It's a good matchup. The forward positions are a lot weaker than the guard positions today. And if you're going to get 33, 34 minutes from Bogdanovich, who has a usage rate for the season of 27%, he's scoring dependent. So it can obviously go poorly there. And it's unlikely that you get a monster game since he's not contributing much outside of points. But I think that he looks like a pretty decent option. He's the guy that I'll have the most of from Utah, with the exception of Conley.
Okay. Now we work our way over to Portland and Houston. So first things first, you have Harden playing today? Yes, I do. You confident about it?
I am not.
Okay. Neither am I.
So here's on FanDuel, obviously you just have to make a decision as far as your risk aversion. I know, talking to Josh, he's cool with taking on the risk. If you're not, then don't. I don't think anybody has a really good answer on it. On DraftKings, the reason that I definitely want to project Harden in is that when you look at the pricing, James Harden is 10,600. You have Damian Lillard at 10.5. You have Westbrook at 10.4. So what I actually did is, in Fantasy Cruncher, I made James Harden only point guard eligible. So I'm going to get a good amount of Harden. And then if he sits, I can just swap it all to Westbrook. And if I already have Westbrook in the lineup, I can swap it to Lillard really easily.
It's a good idea, for sure. So the other thing too about this spot, and by the way, I agree, it makes sense to project him in right now at that price point. When you look at this team over the past month, so since the start of January, Westbrook's got a 36.7% usage rate. Essentially, it's almost identical to Harden's over that span. Now, over the course of the season, I would assume going forward as well, Harden will probably pull away a little bit more in terms of more shot volume, higher usage. But at the same time, Russell Westbrook has been, his assist rate over the last month is 41%. Harden's is 33. Rebound rate is 11.6 to Harden's 10.2. Harden is the type of guy that can give you, 60 real points, right? Westbrook doesn't really provide you with that, based on the fact that he doesn't get to the line as much, and he doesn't knock down threes at a nearly consistent enough clip. But over the last month, Westbrook has been as good as Harden.
Yeah, and I think that it's really hard because, like you said, like between now and the end of the year, I would assume that Harden's usage goes back up, but it also kind of makes sense for it to be down. Teams, if you let James Harden beat you, he's going to beat you. it makes more sense to say, okay, like we're going to deal with Russell Westbrook. We're going to deal with, PJ Tucker shooting corner threes. And if we still lose, we still lose. But you have a better chance there. So I do think that it's interesting that going back the last couple of months, looking on StatMuse, in games where Harden and Westbrook have both played, Harden has a 34.6% usage percentage. Westbrook is at 34.2%. So they're basically the same there. And both they get similar minutes. So I think that there probably is at least something to the fact that in games where they've both played, Harden's usage has come down, Westbrook's has gone up. And then I also think that it's at least somewhat interesting that in the 2 games against Portland this year, Harden has had a below average, by his standards, usage rate, and Westbrook's has been higher in both games. In the first game, Harden was about 30%. The second game, he was only at 19%. Westbrook was at 38% in the first game, 27% in the second. So Portland seems like a team that has gone out of their way to do what they can to get the ball out of Harden's hands. Teams in general recently have been trying to do that. And then you're also talking about Harden dealing with an injury. So he's still my top projected guy on the slate. I'm still rostering him, especially at that DraftKings price tag. But at the same time, I probably have a lower projection on him than just about anyone else.
Okay. I don't really disagree with you there. Not to mention Westbrook. I guess let's close this specific conversation out with this, and then we'll move on. With the way that Westbrook's been playing lately, and forget about performance, look more so at usage and just, overall, volume of opportunity for somebody like Westbrook, where earlier in the season, it wasn't as much. If you end up on Westbrook over Harden at pretty much the same price, if I had this conversation with you in November and I said, it's not that concerning to me, you'd be like, well, you should be concerned, right? Now I'm talking about basically $300 difference 2 months ago when it wasn't even close. Now I still think Harden should be more than $200 more expensive than Westbrook, but I don't think he should be $2,000 more expensive than Westbrook either.
Right. I agree. And the other thing that does play a factor here too is, Harden still projects better for me than Westbrook. Westbrook projects well, and I think Westbrook even at 10-4 is fine. But Harden projects better, but also because of the Q tag, even on DraftKings where you have late swap, the ownership is going to be lower than it otherwise would be if we haven't gotten news by lock. So to me, there is still more benefit in playing Harden than Westbrook if you only can choose one.
And let me be clear, right now I have a lot of Harden and not a lot of Westbrook.
Same here.
Okay.
And if Harden is out, I will be getting to all the Westbrook I possibly can.
I hope I have exactly. I hope I have a ridiculous amount of Russell Westbrook. Because we started with the Houston side, let's close it out with the Houston side, or close out the Houston side before we move to Portland. Clint Capela, any thoughts here, whether he plays or not with this heel injury?
I would think that in this matchup, they would like him to play. It's something that's clearly been bothering him for a while, so that doesn't make me very comfortable. I really hope that he plays because I don't want to guess at what they're going to do if he doesn't. But yeah, I don't really have a strong lean one way or the other.
You're going to get some more Daniel House and Thabo Sefolosha center minutes against Hassan Whiteside. I don't know.
Right. It's or will this be the game that
Hartenstein finally gets 30 minutes?
D'Antoni said earlier, I'm looking at a tweet from the Athletics Rockets reporter. Earlier, D'Antoni said, I think right now we've got a really good shot at all of them playing.
Okay. So we'll assume that he's going to play. That makes things a little bit easier for me. I don't have a ton of interest here. Outside of Harden,
I'm dropping that link in Slack for anyone in there.
Cool. Premium Slack chat, by the way, make sure to join that if you do sign up. I mentioned the promo codes earlier, Deeper Dive and LIV get you half off your first month. First month for $54, a $36 discount. Do you have any other interest in Houston here? I think we broke down the most important parts of it.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, if Capela sits, obviously it all goes sideways, but that will also, the way you react to that will be dependent on the starting lineup. If Tucker starts at center, I think you kind of treat it like the last game. If Hartenstein starts at center, then get him in everywhere you can.
So I got a good amount of Hassan Whiteside today. And I feel okay about it. I still think at, a mid 8K price point on DraftKings, that's more than reasonable given that in competitive games, he's seeing around 35 minutes. What are you doing? We'll start here with the front court with Hassan Whiteside.
Yeah, I think he's still a really appealing option. The salary for him is still pretty low at 8,500 on DraftKings, 8,900 on Fanduel. He's been a little over a 1.3 DraftKings point per minute guy this year. This game has a really high 238 total, highest on the slate by a pretty decent margin. And he's just a good player. So I think that Whiteside's a good play. I have no issue getting to a lot of him.
Have you crunched lineups yet? How much did you get of Whiteside?
On DraftKings, right now I have about 20%, so pretty close to the field.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm over the field on Whiteside here. I'm okay.
A big reason why I don't have more is that I have 45% Valanciunas.
Yeah. And that would definitely make a pretty big difference. You mentioned earlier in the show that Joe Val at 6,400, specifically on DraftKings, is a really solid play. I think I have 33% Joe Val, so I'm okay with that as well. But I guess when it comes down to it, yeah, Pirtle is down a bit. Certainly seems like at the center position, I have a pretty concentrated core of players. I can say that much. Anyway, let's talk about the backcourt in Portland. We both like Whiteside. Any interest in Lillard and $6,900 McCollum on FanDuel? CJ McCollum DraftKings on FanDuel. He's 7,400.
Lillard is pretty site dependent for me. We were talking about it in Slack earlier. 9,800 on FanDuel. I don't think he's overpriced. I think he is less underpriced than some other players, given the FanDuel pricing, but it's fine. On DraftKings, it's really difficult at 10.5. I think if I'm getting to Lillard, the most appealing way to do it would be like in a full game stack. But even the problem you run into there is the guys that you want from the Houston side are really expensive. So it's tough to make that lineup with Lillard. It's just we see it all the time. He played 3 or 4 games without McCollum. That causes the price tag to go up. He played absolutely out of his mind in McCollum's first game back. And you really can't take anything away from that, because the issue when McCollum's in is never that Lillard doesn't have a really high ceiling. So him going out there and putting up a massive game in McCollum's first game back doesn't tell you anything. It's just that his normal production is going to be lower because he's playing more minutes with CJ McCollum on the floor, and that's what happens. So pointing to that game and saying like, oh, Dame Lillard is a totally new player now is I think insane. So he's just naturally, like by definition, overpriced because his salary went up with McCollum out. So really, really, really difficult for me to get there on DraftKings, where he's 100 more than Westbrook, 100 less than Harden, 1,400 more than Irving. On FanDuel, it's easier, where he's only 700 more than Irving and he's 1,200 less than Westbrook. Any
other interest in the Blazers?
Yeah, I mean, I think that McCollum is a good option. This game is just really appealing, and you should get around 36 minutes from McCollum at a pretty cheap price tag. Same goes for Melo, who I think is less appealing than McCollum, but the forward position is weaker than the guard position. So, getting some Melo in there and just hoping that it's a game where he's really involved offensively isn't a bad idea.
Yeah, I like CJ McCollum quite a bit. Like you said, highest total on the slate by a pretty wide margin. You just have to assume that there are going to be a number of guys in this game that put up big fantasy totals, whether Harden's in or out. Let's close it out. We'll turn it over to Live Before Lock. They'll take you up till 7 and then up to 7:30, a little half-hour extra bonus round for Super Draft Lock. Sacramento and OKC. The Kings here are 2.5 point dogs, 221 total. I don't know what's going on with Dedmon's minutes, and I really at this point don't want to guess. I'm giving Bjelica a good amount of run here, and then I'm getting small amounts of guys like De'Aaron Fox and not a lot from this game against the pretty good OKC defense. What are you doing with the Kings?
Yeah, Dedmon is – I have no idea what to do either. Josh and I were talking about it before the show. Like, he played 18 minutes last game. So we had talked 2 games ago. He played 19 minutes, but he was in a ton of foul trouble. Last game, he just played 16 minutes. Game went small. You got not even a lot from Giles either. Giles didn't even play in the second half. Game just went really small.
Bjelica played like 41 minutes total in overtime.
Right. Bjelica got a ton of minutes. That certainly can happen again. And I think that there's actually a good chance this game does go small because on the other side, Steven Adams is playing through an injury. They've acknowledged that. It's just something he's going to have to deal with. And last game, you saw Danilo Gallinari get some minutes without Noel or Adams on the floor. I think it's pretty logical to think that you could see some, Bjelica versus Gallinari lineups here. So I'm not confident at all in Dedmon's minutes. The flip side is that I have no idea how many minutes Dedmon plays. He's $4,000 and nobody's playing the guy. So if he somehow plays, 28 minutes, I would like to have him in my lineups, and I really have no idea how many minutes he plays. So not someone I'm getting to tons of right now. I think I have like 12% on DraftKings, but we haven't projected for like 2 or 3% ownership. So it's someone I expect to be over the field on without it really having the potential to ruin my night.
All right. Want to close it out with OKC?
Yes.
All right. What do you have here? You mentioned you could see Danilo Gallinari getting some run at the 5. Steven Adams' minutes have been down ever since coming back from that abbreviated hiatus. Go ahead, because we're up against it anyway. So go ahead and give me a breakdown on the Thunder.
Yeah, so I think the guards, particularly Chris Paul, are in decent spots. I don't think that I'm taking a huge stand one way or the other on the backcourt, but the guy that I'm the most interested in is a $7,400 Chris Paul. Right now it's looking like Gallinari is going to be one of my biggest stands on the slate, though. I don't love it because it's Gallinari, but at the same time, I think that the price tag on him is affordable. I think the matchup is pretty good. You have Sacramento playing at a faster pace since Fox came back. And I think that there is a decent chance that you're getting, at least, a handful of minutes from Gallinari at the 5, which we don't have a big sample of this year, but he's only played 26 minutes there. But as expected, the rebounds are there. The per minute production goes up. I think Gallinari is a good option tonight, and I think he's under-owned.
Okay. Anything else for OKC? I think that's pretty much it on this team.
That's pretty much it.
All right. That'll do it for us. Thanks for hanging out as always. Hey, and if you guys enjoy the show, want to help support us, the easiest, simplest way to do so is hit that thumbs up button. Appreciate all you guys who have already done that. Subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. And Adam and I will be back with you tomorrow on the Deeper Dive presented by Super Draft.
NBA Live before lock. Awesemo.com. Presented by Super Draft. Super Draft will see you at 7 p.m. But you should check it out now. Get into the contest as soon as you possibly can. $20K guaranteed for their main contest. I want to see where they're at right now. $4K to first. 674 people in. They're taking 1933. It's $12 to get in. Late lock, so it's not starting till 7:30. You got plenty of time to get in. We're going to fill that bad boy by the time we get to 7:30. You should go check it out. Don't have to worry about salaries. It's multiplier season at Super Draft, and I am wearing a coat. I don't know what that means, but it felt like it had something to do with seasons. I don't know.
Seasons.
Fast Eddie Fear. What's going on, man?
Not a lot, man. Good to be back on the air with you as always. Excited to make some people a pile of money like we do every single time Houston plays Portland.
This is a very different Wednesday slate for us.
6-gamer.
Right.
Like we can spend some time. Yeah, this week is heaven for DFS. It's like 6, 8, 6, 8, 7. Like it's a joyous DFS occurrence.
It's really different. You and I have been talking about pretty monstrous slates for what feels like a while, and now the DFS gods have given us the gift of a real weird one. 6 games. A lot of them are like really unappealing with, multiple like 45-ish 100 guys that could get anywhere between 18 and 26 minutes. It's going to take a little bit of nuance, but I'm excited to dive into it.
Yeah, I'm geeked up. I wish I was playing this one. This is a good one.
So, you know how this starts. If you had to recommend one player and one player only for today's slate, who is the guy that gets the Fast Eddie Fear stamp of approval for today?
Yeah, I'm super excited to hear that it looks like James Harden is going to play so that I can put the stamp of approval on Russell Westbrook. Like, everyone and their dog, if Harden was out, would have been like, oh, Westbrook, and then he can game log watch it and be like, like he would have ended up with some fairly monstrous ownership, gone immediately to the top spend up on the slate. And with Harden, with their prices the same, we have Harden projected for well higher than Westbrook. And I was telling you through the 2 days that Houston and Portland have played this year, we've had 4 listeners of the show win $100,000. 1 on the first day and 3 on the second day. And on both of those days, I know specifically for all 4 of those lineups had a lot to do with me saying, look, Harden is going to be more popular. Portland sells out. They have this top line 2 thing they do, which leaves Capela open on the dunker spot, and you just get massive games out of Russell Westbrook. I do think this is systemic. I expect it to continue. It's happened 3 times in a row, including the couple times they played this year with Westbrook there. Both times he scored well higher than Harden. I don't think that's small sample size. That's what I would expect to happen most of the time. Harden still isn't 100%. We still have him as higher projected ownership. More people seem to like him. I think on that first day we had like Harden 20 and Westbrook 8, and he went off for about 70. Oh, we have Westbrook up higher now. Boo. Look at this Westbrook ownership.
22 on DraftKings is what I'm seeing.
People have come around. That's unfortunate. Well, still really excited to play Russell Westbrook still at 22. Okay. Second time, same thing. It was like Harden 22% and Westbrook 8, and he had a 70-point triple-double again. And that was the day we got the biggest tournament on Fanduel, the biggest tournament on Fanduel, the $200 on DK. Someone else won for $100,000. And then someone came in second in the largest tournament on DK, which was also $100,000. So that was exciting. Apparently people finally kind of caught up a little bit, and he's owned closer to appropriately, but I'd still have well more than the field on Russell Westbrook. It's tough for me because I am a massive fan of Kyrie Irving in this spot, and he's well cheaper, and so you're really you're marking a lot of salary, obviously. But yeah, I'd be trying to find a way to start lineups with those 2 guys a lot. I really love Kyrie, so I thought we were going to get like 10, 12, 15% Westbrook again. I'm disappointed to see that number. Like at this point, seeing the ownership, I would almost pivot to Sabonis. I'm a real big fan of Sabonis here. Likewise. This matchup is magnifique. This is the I'll give you the short version because I actually think we can like get through everything today.
I was gonna say you can give the long version. We got plenty of time today.
Well, no, if I give the long version, we won't get through everything. So your average Wednesday, I have 100 notes and I get through 26 of them, and I try to get the most important 26, and that's the best you can do. And I don't. The constant tension with me is I want to give a well thought out response and explain everything about it, because I really do believe, rather than saying like play this guy and don't play this guy, you try to teach a man to fish, don't give a man a fish. So I really like try to get into it. Also because I'm wrong all the time, and I try to give the precept, the reasoning behind the conclusions I've drawn, so that you can go, oh, I disagree with your reason there, so screw your play. As opposed to if I just go play Russell Westbrook, don't play James Harden, I find that to be almost useless information, and also hard to get away from the times that I'm wrong, and I'm going to be wrong pretty constantly. Last I was telling you in the green room, a real quick story. I had and there's some pushback every night. I usually get 100 really nice tweets, depending on how good the slate goes, obviously, and 1 to 6 people who threaten my life or whatever. So last night, I think I was pretty terrible. Last night was one of the worst shows for me. I like Delon Wright a lot. He got 15 minutes instead of the 30 he'd gotten a few games in a row as a matchup. I thought they would really need his skill set. That didn't work out. 5 fantasy points in 15 minutes. I like Trae Young a lot. He didn't, I wanted more of him in the field. He didn't perform. But I think, fairly average on Dante Exum. Like, I thought he was fine. I said he's going to be the second most popular value play. He was some 20% owned. He was higher in higher limits because they announced he was going to get the start. He was $3,100 in a really good matchup. And it was hard to get away from the inherent math there. So shout out to the guy who sort of flamed me and said, like, lol, good call with Dante Exum there. Howell Neto was so much better. And then blocked me before I could say anything like this. But that was just a really weird one that Howell Neto got in there. And that, like, saying shit call and Delon Wright, that would make some sense. I think I was much higher on him than most people. As opposed to Exum, I was kind of average. And then to pull Neto out either indicates that, like, I was foolish in not having seen Howell Neto busting out for the best 15-minute segment of his career. So I found that one a particularly enjoyable flame style. I also have a tweet here. You shouldn't host shows with Josh anymore. He's a scumbag who tells people to play contests without rake. Is there an explanation for this, that you're a bad guy for telling people to avoid rake? Is this something that happened on the early show? Usually I think
that's just a joke.
I'm presuming, but at some point, did you tell people to play without rake and get in trouble or get in a fight? Or
I got yelled at on Reddit last year for recommending people play those like no management fee, low management fee contests on Yahoo.
How does that get one in trouble? Besides being amazingly obvious,
because I was not playing them myself.
Well, Jesus, then everything I've said in the last 5 years has been I'd be booted off Reddit immediatamente.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, playing things with lower rake, 0 rake versus 15% rake is more important than anything Josh or I will ever say. Yep. So it's like okay. Sorry, I was just curious.
That's the most important thing possible. So
yeah. So Sabonis. No Turner. Me likey Brogdon in. Me likey actually. Plays monstrous time at center in the best possible matchup to play center against. Third matchup this year between the Pacers and the Bulls. There was one game where Turner was in and Sabonis was out. He had his best game of the year. There was one game where they were both out, I think, in the other game. I didn't rewatch this today. But and like you got a good Goga game if memory serves. I'll look that up in a second. But
that sounds right.
Draftkings 94. I still like that a lot. Fanduel 85 power forward. Sign me up for some Sabonis. So it's certainly honorable mention for a guy I'm going to start the show talking about for him there.
There's one guy we need to hit on. This is not a DraftKings question, but I think we need to at least address it. Right now, the chalk ownership on Fanduel the chalkiest play on Fanduel is Jake Puddle at 45%. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on him? I was forgetting about
Jake Puddle until you told me the Game of Zones thing. That's so great. That's Jake Puddle.
How do you handle that? 4,400, one center and one center only. It's a tricky spot today.
It is really interesting on both FanDuel versus DraftKings. Also, it's actually kind of interesting too because there's a lot of point guards I like, and ending up with your utility on that makes it interesting. So if you play a higher priced Pirtle, that's your one center, unless you're devoting your utility spot to it as well. And 5,600 is not, obviously from a raw mathematical perspective, as sexy as 4,400. Whereas on FanDuel, you completely shut yourself out. Earlier today, I think we had him projected for some 70, 80%.
Yeah.
That's that I would have said come in under on because of the nature of things on FanDuel. But like 45 and 25, those feel about right. I'm a fan of Jake Puddle as a player. He's done a lot better this year. If you look at his fantasy production per minute per game, his base stats, they've all improved this year.
Yeah. Yeah, like he's not a scrub. Like he's a solid basketball player. He's going to be a rotational center for a long time. He is going
to start for the Spurs, I think, for a couple years. Actually, I think he actually turns into that guy for them. We'll see, or he gets traded. But I think he'll be a starting center playing 30 minutes a night sooner rather than later. He's really good at rim protection. He doesn't turn the ball over. Like I'm a Jake Puddle fan, but I have him tonight for 34 minutes and 35 fantasy points. That obvious. I'm curious what everyone else has him projected at for like minutes in production, but that's what I ended up with for him. And on FanDuel, 4,400 for 35 average obviously feels pretty juicy. And you can't talk about him without pointing out the rest of the value is kind of crap.
Yeah.
And I really like guys like Kyrie Irving and Russell Westbrook. So you're going to get shoved into that a whole hell of a lot. It is hard for me not to like Drummond if we get news, and I'll recheck all my feeds here.
Right.
And
there's
see
a lot to like at center today on FanDuel. That's the really interesting piece for this.
Yeah, that's so it is really interesting. My gut on it is that those numbers are about where they should be.
Yeah.
Neither of them feels 45 and 25 about being the numbers we have for him right now. Those feels pretty just about right for me. 5,600 on DK still projects just fine for me. The Rockets just proved us wrong in this whole, you should play your bigger guy at center because Gobert theory, like it just blew up. Thankfully I was off Monday, but that apparently detonated in the face of the doubting community. Like there was a support group for everyone who talked shows in Hartenstein on Monday.
That's what I was trying to tell Adam and Laffy before the show started. Maybe they don't go with Jake Puddle at center and they go with Patty Mills or something.
Right. Maybe they're like, oh, we figured out how to beat them.
Yeah.
Obviously, let's get Lonnie Walker out there at center. Yeah,
right.
That is a joke. But I'd love to sit here and be like, oh, if I'd have been on that day, I'd have had a better read. No, I could have gotten away from Clemens. Clemens, I could have viewed many ways that Clemens didn't get enough time at D'Antoni. He's really on the anti-rookie side. He's been deployed sporadically. There was one other game this year where I thought he'd get significant time and ended up in single digits. So that one I would have been like, yeah, maybe that doesn't happen. Hartenstein had just started a game and been brilliant, and this would seem like a situation. So like, I wouldn't have gotten away from it. I'd have been like, what do we have? 70% feels good. Like I would have had a lot. I don't know about 70, but I'd have been accepting a whole lot of Hartenstein. So anyway, maybe talk about tonight instead of then. But
yeah, sometimes it's fun to vent a little bit.
FCLPDNB. Hopefully, I just didn't read some obscene acronym in the chat. Asks thoughts on Rudy Gay for cheap value tonight. I would want to see him start, which I don't think is an impossibility, actually, when you have Puddle over to center.
Yeah.
And I would be a pretty big fan because that move is projection for me for, I think, 22 to 25 or 6 is where it works out in my rotation. So I'd like to see that, and definitely something to keep an eye on as we get towards lock. And again, you get at least 90 minutes of Josh and me today. We're going to hang on until 7:30, do some ownership, talk some super draft, try to fill up. We filled it up yesterday.
We'll have no problem. I've got it loaded up in my sheet. I've got super draft rankings. We're going to be good to go.
I am really, they're starting Jakar Sampson. Someone just linked in the chat. Thanks very much. But yeah, there's center. You were mentioning, Drummond, Capela, Whiteside, Gobert, not a coming off one not amazing game out of his last 7.
Joe Val?
That's a funny question. Joe Val, yeah, oh, absolutely. I am dubious Joe Val because Joe Val is very difficult to project. Like I wasn't a big fan of Joe Val last night based on previously having some struggles with Jokic and in a number of ways. He's not amazingly fast, so Jokic, who struggles on defense, sometimes actually usually covers him pretty well. Like I'd have to look it up, but I'm pretty sure that may have been by far the best game you've ever gotten out of Valanciunas against Jokic. Now, not having Millsap there were other externalities there, but Jokic can kind of guard him okay, and he has trouble sometimes with Jokic out at the three-point line, and Jokic is a ball handler and a passer and all that, so it's been a tough spot for him, and he went off and had an amazing game last night. So now I'm looking at on a back-to-back and popular and guy who is not one of the easier to predict players. Again, there's a lot of guys I feel like I'm very solid on when they're going to do well and when they're not. Joval I'm very rarely like, Joval will be great tonight, and he actually does it. There's spots I like him in, but there's just once a month where it's like, 55 out of Joval. Had no idea that was going to happen tonight. So
sometimes he just smashes.
Right. So
by the way, Andre Drummond expected to play.
Oh God, no, it's so complicated. I like some avocados and burst lips, and now so you can do all these injuries at once. We had avocados, and then the lips and teeth, and then left wrist. So that's what happens when you take an avocado and just slam it into your face really hard. You can suffer with your left hand. You can suffer all those injuries concurrently.
Yeah, those avocado pits.
Third meeting of the year also between the Nets and the Pistons. Did have time to go back and watch those. Kyrie and Drummond ran those games, brother. In the two games, Kyrie had a triple-double in one and 45 real points in the other, and Drummond had a 20-20 in both of them. Yeah. So, and I see no reason to expect those things not to continue. Someone sent me a tweet a while ago saying, do you really like Jared Allen tonight? He's really stepped up against Drummond each of the last two games. That's not true. The first game, DeAndre Jordan really stepped up against him, and he had a really nice DeAndre Jordan game against him. And then the second game, Jared Allen really stepped up and had a monster game for him as well. So I think they're both fine to go to in GPPs, but I'm obviously pretty concerned about some 24 minute split. And as we've previously imparted, there are stellar value options at center and massive ceiling options at center. So it's a tough spot for me to get to, put it that way. But it's a good question. I like the thought process. But
let's plug Superdraft quickly one last time.
Yeah,
Superdraft.io. Use the promo code AWESEMO to get yourself $20 in super cash on your first $100 deposit. Again, we're going to be going long today. Eddie and I will be on all the way up till 7:30. That is when the Superdraft lock happens. So tune into that. And you should just sign up at awesemo.com. Go to awesemo.com/join. Use the promo code live before lock. You can get 50% off your first weekly package of Awesemo Plus. And one final plug. I think somebody's rankings are free today.
Yours?
No, I don't have rankings.
I should have worked on them harder. What do we got? I'm gonna have to now. I have to do updates during the show. So what do we got? Let's see what news we got.
Fast Eddie Fears rankings are free today, along with Super Draft projections. We're giving you guys the goods, so check it all out.
The pressure. But yeah, I'm excited Harden is playing, so I cannot play him. I love that. Drummond expected to play. Yeah, non-shooting hand, wrist is one of the lesser injuries I would be concerned with when looking at that situation there.
Speaking of their situation, how do you anticipate their wing rotation looking? They've got a lot of bodies now. Bruce Brown, Markieff Morris, Svi, Sekou, Langston Galloway, Tony Snell.
Tony Snell, is back as well. It's
I didn't even say Thon McCurr, who started at the 4 yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago. Yesterday Sekou got 36. Yeah. I want to say minutes out of Sekou. Like a lot of the day, I was like, if a couple of these bodies can come out, I'm gonna like Sekou a fair bit. I ranked him at double Bs. He's 3,900. Dude played, 36 minutes in a pretty great matchup. Thankfully, I don't think we need to do a lot of this now, but if I'm picking amongst that crop, it's going to be site dependent, obviously. But I imagine on DraftKings, the non-Rose, non-Drummond guy I get to more often than not would be Reggie Jackson.
Okay.
I think at 4,500 the price is still there and fine. I think the matchup is a very good one. I imagine his mid-20s in minutes are safe, and his usage has been pretty monstrous since he returned. So I guess I'd go with Reggie. But you said it. Not that long ago was Bruce Brown Day. I was a big fan of it, but everyone is back and healthy. We had a game without Reggie on the back-to-back returning from injury. We had games without Rose. Obviously we still have no Kennard, no Blake, but with everyone healthy, I don't know. You'd like to think Langston Galloway gets the haircut. Didn't get a ton of time yesterday, so hopefully that's not there. Tony Snell at $3,500. A couple of these guys are out on a crappy value slate would actually rank for me getting 30-something minutes in a. Like I'd have to, if I thought he's getting 34 minutes, I'd project him for 19 fantasy points because he's that guy. But even at like 0.6 fantasy points a minute in a good matchup, with no other value, those are the guys you start to take shots on. You can randomly pull 30 out of Snell in the right spot. But Drummond back in limits the usage on everyone. Rose still pulling the cart quite a bit. And then Reggie taking a bigger slice. So, Reggie tops for me. After that, either, God, I don't know. Probably
it's a
Sekou
really
and
tricky
then
team.
Probably Sekou and then Zvi, but it's a matchup. I understand wanting to get a piece there, but it's very similar to the Spurs in that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking at a lot of guys getting 21 to 27 minutes, and no one may get there. One or two guys may get there. You're forced into some speculation because of the ownership situation. But yeah, on the lower price guy, I would prefer Drummond much more than Rose. For a couple of reasons, though a fine spot for Rose, but I think Drummond is actually an incredibly strong play. Although I would prefer Sabonis to Drummond simply because of prices and position on both sides. Like you can play Pirtle and Sabonis, but on FanDuel that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, then probably on DraftKings it's probably Reggie. I'll go Reggie, Sekou, Zvi would be the third one for me because of the scoring and the matchup. It's a spot where he could bang a good number of threes. So
I've got another weird one for you. It's a real weird slate. How do you feel about Mike Conley today?
Yeah.
3,800, I believe, maybe on both sites, but somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I have to like him. FanDuel a little tuffle. FanDuel.
Yeah.
FanDuel a little tuffle. FanDuel a little tougher due to the position.
Yeah.
I like Kyrie and I like Westbrook. I'm a pretty big fan of the spend up there. I was $11,000 on Westbrook. People are like I have him well higher than Harden. He's my top scorer in the slate. So that's my bold projection for the day there. Although, again, I look at stats and game logs. I look at video, and then what I expect, and when all three of those things add up, I'm generally fairly confident. So, I'm a pretty big fan there. So I would rather spend up there, liking Westbrook at 11, and Kyrie at about 9, and you can find the value elsewhere on FanDuel where there's a couple cheap power forwards. I think when they put the 24-minute tag on Oladipo at $4K on FanDuel, I did not rank him on DraftKings. FanDuel is $4,000, so $500 over the floor versus $3,000 over the floor is a pretty relevant distinction there. So that's a perfectly usable piece of value. Ariza on FanDuel is $3,700. That's a very good price. He's going to play 30 some odd minutes. Like he's better than Tony Snell, who I was just reasonably optimistic of if I could have projected him for that many minutes. And this is in a better game, so.
I unfortunately like Ariza too much.
On FanDuel, I can see having an absurd amount of Trevor Ariza.
I certainly do have that absurd amount right now.
If you told me you had 75% Trevor Ariza on FanDuel, I'd be like, yeah, he's probably the best value play on the slate after Pearl.
I have 42.
But again, you have 42. Yeah, like I that feels dirty as hell. And he is ready to go out, play 33 minutes, and get 7 fantasy points for you in the fastest game of the night. He can do that. He is old. He doesn't do much but shoot, but I have good news.
He and PJ Tucker might have a race to the bottom in that one.
Yeah. He's and again, he's also there's been a few guys over the last couple of weeks, and it's a fascinating. I went to a process show, maybe you, me, and Alex one of these days, and talk about stuff. But there are guys who, again, you can measure this to some degree with usage, but just don't get any bonus when other guys are out. PJ Tucker is one of them. We had the game with 2 Rockets out couple weeks ago, and PJ Tucker was 60% chalk, and I slagged the crap out of him. I'm like, he doesn't do anything differently. It's actually worse for him. If you check half the team out, now they just don't get him open threes, which is the only way he's getting production on the offensive end of the court. So you get the same rebounds and steals and blocks you always do, and now you're not getting the threes. Like when
you mean to tell me that he's not out ISOing anybody at the top of the key?
Yeah, exactly. Like if you take Harden and Westbrook out of there, like starting at center, obviously you're going to get a boost in some other things, but like you take Harden and Westbrook out of there, I like him so much less, and his projection goes up from 4% ownership to 40%, and I'm like, oh my God, like that was my biggest runaway screaming of the year. There's been some bad chalk, but that PJ Tucker chalk day, I was like, it's not even good. Like literally he's 10 times as owned as he was yesterday because the situation is worse. I can't. So anyway, it's really hard not to like that spot for Ariza in this particular matchup, especially at home. I like it's so FanDuel, great. DraftKings, it's literally a case of like 50% and 0 for me. Like DraftKings at 4,900 is so much less a concern. So just guys who cost that much who can randomly bang you out a giant upside game, and they are rare from Trevor Ariza. You may have seen Trevor Ariza's best game in the year already.
I hope not. Given the amount of Trevor Ariza I have today, that would be.
I
would prefer it be
you're
today
fine.
if you don't.
At small forward. Well, I mean, at small forward, he could get 24 and be brilliant for you.
Yeah,
you just need none of the other small. Like you need to not randomly land a big, mellow Marcus Morris, Boyan, or Gallinari game or something like that. Who's randomly a small forward on FanDuel now, which is odd because like he never plays that position ever. Basically, is he the third biggest guy in the court ever on that team? Do you ever guard the opposing small forward? Like it's a really weird change that they moved him up. But anyhow, he's small forward there. Just kind of like that. 6,200. I can get behind that. I think I would rather have Boyan at 57 there, but it'd be close for me. I like the spot for Gallinari.
You know what I would rather have?
Super draft. We're gonna do another plug.
No, but that would be good. That would be very EMAC of me.
They get a whole half hour.
We've got 3,200 people in here right now, and only 368 likes. I don't feel like that's enough, so we should definitely hit the thumbs up button.
Like
I saw
11%.
a certain competitor of ours begging for 250 and coming up quite short today. So let's shame them a little bit and run that number right to the sky. Also, we got a super chat. Courtney Crump, thank you very much. If you do 3 lineups, how many core plays would you use in all 3 lines, and who on FanDuel? Really trying to get that money's worth, Courtney, huh?
I mean, he paid for it. Is it like $1.50 super chat? So it's like 50 cents a guy. That would be unimpressive. But,
it is a little bit more, but
okay. I want to be clear that this is. A lot of people will tell you in DFS to, get a process and refine it and stick with it. I've always found that to be very dangerous advice. The games change and the slates change massively, and a lot of things people do every day aren't good every day. A lot of them are good
FanDuel
most
is a
days.
different game now than it was 6 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, they completely turned their pricing on its head. So that's just one example of how just this stuff changes radically. And I know people who there's a reason that there are DFS players who literally made $1 million in 2015 and $1 million in 2016 and broke even in 2017 and lost $1 million in 2018 and retired. That's because they had a process and did it constantly for X years. And when the game changes and you don't, you might still be fine. You could be that goddamn good. But so I just want to contextualize when you say, if you have 3 players, how many core players would they be? Like, I'm a massive fan of making sure you don't decide that I'm always going to have you have this many fast games and this many slow games and 2 good pieces of chalk or 9. If it gets just the entire scenario changes so much day to day. Core plays on FanDuel. I really need to look at the ownership until I can answer your question in an educated way. But I think it's a good question because it also leads us to.
Is there anyone you would expect to have in all 3 of those lineups?
I might say Domantas Sabonis. I might say Kyrie Irving.
If Jake Puddle was a power forward, the answer would be Jake Puddle. But because he's a center, that's impossible.
The answer would be Jake Puddle. I'd have 1 or 2 Westbrook. I'd have 1 or 2 Puddle. I'd have I could really end up there on Sabonis, I think. But let me check our FanDuel ownership. And Sabonis, see here,
he's the highest owned power forward as of right now.
Yes, he's the second highest owned player. Interestingly enough, the next 2 players are super under-owned Julius Randle. Yeah, that's right. Not super under-owned, sorry. Super underpriced Julius Randle and super underpriced Domantas Sabonis are popular plays 2 and 3. I imagine I would not have 3 of anyone, but I would have probably 2 Ariza, maybe 2 Pirtle, almost certainly 2 Sabonis, almost certainly 2 Kyrie Irving. I really like the spot for Kyrie Irving anyway, and there's very few players in the league who, if they choose to go out and have a narrative game, can't do again, other people have different takes on this. I'm a big fan of saying I think narratives exist. I'm sure they matter. I'm sure they change game scores. I have no idea how to quantify it. But
I think I know how to quantify one if it's Kyrie Irving, and that's just going to be a simple increase to the usage rate. I don't think that he's going to suddenly be trying to rebound significantly more.
Well, no, but I'm saying that's I meant quantify the actual production.
I agree. I wasn't disagreeing with you. This was the one that I feel like I feel in my gut.
And you know, he is going to be higher owned because of that. I'm looking right now. He's sitting number 6 on FanDuel. Marcus Morris is number. Have you noticed a sort of unsustainably aggressive Knicks ownership today? Like, I mean, it's because they're a little cheap. I mean, Randall's really cheap on. I don't know. People like the Knicks more than I do today.
Yeah, the Randall on FanDuel one.
That rhymes.
Yeah, Randall on FanDuel. Just got to stretch it out. I just typed over FanDuel with the Knicks abbreviation so I could look at it a little bit easier. That's not going to help me at all. By the way, thanks to everybody. Up to 676 likes. Love you guys. Yeah, Randall on FanDuel, again, makes sense. But Marcus Morris feels a little healthy. 5,800 feels fine, but...
Yeah, I have Boyan projected higher, and
I don't quite high on that gentleman as well.
I don't. Okay, well, there you go. We're putting our spoon in the same milkshake there.
We have him projected for 12% ownership on FanDuel. I have triple that.
Okay, yeah, I have him projected for 1.5 points higher than Marcus Morris. I'm curious what your numbers and the site's numbers have for those gentlemen. And again, we have Marcus Morris at 2.5 times the ownership, so that one feels pretty easy for me.
Yep.
Well, again, there's like 3,500 people watching, or we just moved it. We just narrowed that gap. I'm telling you, it's the Heisenberg uncertainty principle here. The act of discussing a phenomenon affects it. Anyway,
I remember when he said that in that episode of Breaking Bad.
God damn it! Talking about Werner Heisenberg. Well, that's fine.
No,
bunch of kids and television.
Sorry, man. Big.
I'm just kidding.
I'm a huge.
I love Breaking Bad. Oh well, yeah. Methamphetamine is.
Nothing gets me going like meth.
We have sponsors. Well, tonight is sponsored by Super Draft, as opposed to some of our other sponsors. Maybe they like meth, and we can get away with it.
Hey, we could probably get it sponsored by Adderall or something like that, and then people wouldn't care as much.
I actually did a little promo video in my old job for Monster Energy drinks. Are you jacked up for some DFS? Like I did a thing. It was shockingly, they did not buy it either. Me as a salesman, the venue.
Sorry about that. So I've got another guy that I need to ask you about. Sweet. Because I didn't expect him to play all that much. And then they set a limit at 24 minutes. Mm-hmm. And he's got an interesting price tag on FanDuel. Yeah. What do we want to do with the returning Victor Oladipo?
Yeah, I'm at 22 minutes. I like coming off the bench for getting as much bonus and Brogdon differential time as possible. I have him at 22 minutes and 23 fantasy points. So I'm perfectly acceptable having him. I did not rank him on DraftKings. I'm totally fine getting there on FanDuel. I can see like there's a couple other places you can go, but we have Crowder back, so I'm not sure exactly the lineup Memphis is going to roll out there, but I don't think you can get back to 37 Kyle Anderson. That would have been interesting. That FanDuel price was pretty appealing, but as far as shooting guard value goes, I'm pretty sure he's the man on top of the pile at this point.
I have too much Jay Crowder right now that you mentioned that name.
I'm nervous. I mean, it was a knee for him. Tony Snell at 36. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but thankfully with everyone back, there's a chance he plays like 27 minutes and that would kill it for me. So Damian Dotson, not unplayable. Bryn Forbes, not unplayable. He's a Spurs guard. You can run him out there. You'll project him for 16, but he will occasionally bomb a 30.
He will.
Zvi at 4,000. I would rather have Oladipo, but he'll be higher owned. So that's a thing you can do. But I mean, you should really try to get Bogdan at 4,400. I think. Like I like Oladipo just fine. I think you can get there, but I have him as he's a little bit more productive than Bogdan. But I have Bogdan at 33 minutes and Oladipo at 22. So that's a lot of more time for Bogey there. So you can come up with $400 on FanDuel, but much rather put Bogdan in there. Plus, that way, if you go with Boyan, we were just talking about, you can have all the Bogdanovici.
Just got another super chat from William Fields. Freddie Fingers with Harden and Westbrook in. Is PJ Tucker a play on DraftKings? ... Plot twist ...
Oh, I see. So he's sort of correlating. Let me rephrase. PJ Tucker on any given day is one of those guys who I'm fine to take the shot at when I expect him to be fairly low owned.
Yes.
So if PJ Tucker is going to be 2% owned, he's in that school with Boban and other guys where it's just like when he's low owned, sure, I think it's a very cute day because something can go, weird and he can get there. And it was because I previously said, I like him less with Westbrook and Harden now, which is weird. There's not a lot of guys in the NBA where you take out massive usage guys next to him and they don't get better. But I would be surprised if PJ Tucker in games without them is actually scoring to any degree higher. There was one of them in which he played like 37 minutes without those guys and took a shot. Like that is a real thing. Just because the offense runs the same way and you just have Ben McLemore and Austin Rivers penetrating and trying to kick to the corner instead of two of the best to ever do it. And so it just doesn't work as much and he doesn't get open and get shots. No, I don't think I'm fine if you want to play a PJ Tucker tonight. He was not particularly brilliant in either of the 2 games earlier this year with them there. I want to say he didn't get to 20 points in either of them. Not that a 2-game sample of that. Like it's a purely randomness thing. So if you have 150 lineups and have 3 PJ Tucker, go with God. You could get 4 steals and 2 blocks and 3 corner threes and get 24 fantasy points out of him or something. But it's certainly not something I would advocate for.
Okay. What have we not touched on? Another opportunity for you guys to hit that like button while we're trying to figure out where to go. 765. I see 1,000 in our future. 235. I already forgot what the number was. Yes, 235 to go. I think that we can pull that off. We probably need to touch a little bit on Portland, who has 4 very legitimate guys that aren't named Trevor Ariza that I think that we can talk about. Anybody you do really like? Anybody you don't really like out of the group
No,
of 4?
I wouldn't go terribly hard or terribly soft on any of those gentlemen. I probably like again, I'll use DraftKings just as the first basis of reference. I would probably end up with McCollum on top.
Okay.
You could make an argument for Whiteside for me, but I would probably have McCollum a hair over Whiteside. And then a decent standoff before I got to Lillard or Melo. I love Lillard, and guy is averaging, I have no idea, 50-something real points and 80 fantasy points over his last 3 games. He's gone absolutely apeshit. This is a great spot. I would rather go with McCollum, again, not to get too much into the weeds of the way Houston's defense operates, but they do a decent job of isolating him. And clearly you can get to a ceiling, but you're looking at the fact that he's not a radically different human being than he was 10 days ago. Like he didn't take the super serum or something. So, he was pretty great at 8, 8.5, 9. Now he's, 10 and stuff. And there's obviously a couple other guards in the 10 range I like a lot. And Kyrie, who is cheaper than him. And so, it is tougher for me to get to Lillard, and it is a bit more of a McCollum spot. I actually haven't looked at those numbers whatsoever. My recollection of rewatching those games today, I was more. I'll take some look. People want to randomly box score watch this, but I'm a bigger fan of McCollum in this spot off the top of my head.
Okay.
Let's see, 2 games this year. McCollum 24, 1, 6, 2, and 1. So 40 odd fantasy points, played 38 minutes in the first game. Lillard 25, 7, 7, and 2. So you got about 40 out of McCollum, 50 out of Lillard. I would have preferred Lillard, obviously, or McCollum, obviously, in that scenario. Second time, again, they both played. McCollum 10 for 19 from the field. Lillard 4 for 15 from the field. Lillard 13, 11, and 6. Just still a decent line, but not getting anywhere near paying off 10K. No. McCollum 25, 5, 3, and 2. So again, basically a touch over 40. So McCollum had somewhere in the area of like 42 and 44 fantasy points in 2 games against them this year, which I hadn't looked at. It felt good. Whiteside, I think, has a monster ceiling, and again, in the 2 games I watched today, was particularly brilliant in one of them. I like him quite a bit. I would have him behind Sabonis and Drummond. Okay. Looking at DK prices at the moment, but he probably slots in right after that for me. I'd want to have some. It is a spot where you can get a giant ceiling out of him. I would, be interesting to see what we get the news out of Capela. I would like him more if it's Hartenstein. I would like him more if it's Tucker, actually.
Yeah.
Because the time is better for him in both of those.
That one's going to be miserable just going up until lock, but at this point it seems like it's going to be Capela. I don't know who Capela is, but that's a terrible name.
Kampala? That's delicious. Kamala?
No.
Ooh. No, I'm Kamala. You're kimchi.
Oh.
I'm bigger than you.
I don't like kimchi, and I don't mean that as the person, as the food.
Oh, yeah, that's not my favorite either.
I don't like the crunch. It's not for me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not for
I'm
me.
with you there.
Okay.
I mean, I would rather have it than say ketchup on eggs or something. But yeah,
Exactly. Now you're talking, you're making
Obviously.
a lot of sense. You're making a lot of sense.
I try.
Um,
Any interest in Bazemore and his minutes are increasing 16, 19, and 21? No, for short. Like I can see getting there, but again, this is a team that is now back to be talking about. We're talking about the Kings at this point, obviously, because they swap it, or they swappity dude there a little bit. But I don't think there is much ceiling beyond that. So, this is still going to be less. I'll put it this way: it's still going to be less minutes that Bazemore was routinely getting in Portland, and he was very rarely getting there in a worse matchup. So, I don't have a problem if you have a lineup or two of Bazemore. I don't think he's not viable, but I would have very little interest in I would Baze less.
That's the best line. It really is.
I enjoy that one. I think it's still my favorite NBA clip of the last couple of years is when someone called Miles Turner the odometer. That's really good.
It's a fantastic nickname. It really is.
That's excellent. And when they started to call CJ Miles CJ kilometers when he was traded to
Toronto.
Yeah, that was excellent.
That's good stuff.
Yeah,
I like a good nickname. Creative, man. They're creative.
Favorite one ever was Joe Prisbilla, the Vanilla Gorilla. That was just absolutely.
I don't even remember that.
That was big doofy guy who looked like.
Oh, I remember Joe Prisbilla. I don't remember the nickname.
Yeah, the Vanilla Gorilla.
Joe Prisbilla not going to play in this NBA any longer.
You get the triple assonance, a little bit of alliteration. If you're into homophones or any other form of etymology geek out, it was a great time and a great place to be. More innocent time.
Where do we need to go with just 13 minutes remaining before lock? Is there anybody you have not touched on that you want to make sure you let the people know about?
Let's see. We talked about that. I like some tournament exposure to Thad Young. His ownership will be poop because he's been poop. I mean, he hasn't been dreadful. He's got almost exactly 28 fantasy points 3 games in a row.
His poop has been solid. It hasn't been diarrhea.
It hasn't been runny. We haven't hit the sort of upside game we could have gotten from him. He just missed the double a couple of games where he had 8 and 9. He had a couple single steal games, but this is a spot, especially getting Sampson out there starting a couple other things where I think you can pull a low end double with some number of steals. So at that price, I would have some 5 or 10%. I'd want to make some priority of that. I like DeRozan. Aldridge has missed. I like whoever starts at the 4 next to Pirtle, presuming Pirtle starts. By the way, which I think he will, but I'm not taking anything for granted here. So presuming Pirtle starts, I like whoever starts next to Pirtle at the 4. I do think that person will be underowned, be it Rudy Gay or Trey Lyles. Aldridge has missed 3 games this year. Swath of 2 a couple months ago, and then the one, obviously the last game versus the Bulls, I think it was.
Here comes the Damari Carroll showcase.
No. I would rather play. I'd play Lonnie Walker at minimum price. Dude's playing 15, 17 minutes every game. I don't hate that matchup and can do Lonnie Walker. If I'm looking for a 3K, I'd get to Lonnie Walker before I get to Damari Carroll. I'm not saying play him. Talk about Carroll. Again, value is pretty bad. So a couple other guys, I think, in fringe cases, I think you can. All right, I'm going to start with the one I would actually recommend. You can play Justin Holiday. I kind of like Justin Holiday in this spot. He'll get minutes into the mid-20s. He's 36 or 38. He's, generally had pretty high usage when he's out there recently. Like the spot against the Bulls for him specifically. Again, Ford's front court members, big fan. Backcourt guys, not a super big fan. Not super interested in Brogdon for that reason. It is an environment that's difficult for opposing guards. You can play Dougie McBuckets. again, I took a giant crap over massive chalk Dougie McBuckets, who went out and was, again, very efficient, made 75% of his threes and didn't hurt you. So it wasn't great, but give you like 24, whatever. I'm much happier to play lower owned, slightly more expensive Dougie McBuckets than chalky Dougie McBuckets. Not a giant ceiling there, but again, the value is pretty bad. So either of those guys are optional. I would rather fire a bullet at Justin Holiday than Dougie Fresh. There is just a couple other value plays I have some interest in.
Okay. You know what's really valuable? Overlay.
Ooh,
you know what we're staring in the face? Overlay. The $20,000 jump shot on Super Draft right now, 4K to first. Only 919 people out of the 1,933 needed. That's like half full. It's not even half full. Yeah. I highly, highly, highly recommend you take a look at this contest right now, guys. Superdraft.io. Use the promo code AWESOMO when you sign up to get yourself $20 in Super Cash on your first $100 deposit. That's a free entry in Super Cash, plus $8 to spare. You could hop in some other stuff. But right now, there is looking like a sizable chunk of overlay. I got to steer you guys to it. I'm not steering you wrong. If you can get into contests where there is overlay, you will be better in the long term by default. Even if you're like just by default, that's going to be better for you.
Yeah, I mean the
worst
DFS
case scenario, you'll just lose less.
Yeah, playing DFS is a struggle to be profitable, and you're starting down a hill of overcoming the rake. Yes. Usually, it's about 15% if you're playing main slates and GPPs. And I spent some time in a long conversation a couple of weeks ago, really trying to break down and quantify, and it's different there are many variables that affect it, but there's basically, I think, something like 5 or 6% of it is overcome by just not being an idiot. So literally there's enough people just doing really dumb crap that if you don't do anything completely stupid and follow the news, you cover about a third of that. But then I'm trying to get my process better to pick up a percentage or two here, and I'm trying to get this. And so, being smart and making the right plays manages for 1, 2, 3%, having great projections, having a good grasp on ownership, keeping a good eye on Twitter, watching an excellent show. Like there's all kinds of ways to chip away at it. But just when you move that number from 15% to 0 or negative 5% when you get into overlay, that's more important than anything else. So long story short, check around and find places to play where there's less or negative rake. That'll work well for you in the long term.
They don't lock until 7:30, but I highly recommend you get there, guys. Want to make sure you get those deposits in if you haven't been there before. But anytime you can grab some overlay, it's going to be better off for you without question. We did get another super chat from William Fields, Josh Engelman, but I'm going to also pose this question to you, Eddie, because that would be rude if I didn't.
That's all right.
On DK, $3,300 Diallo might be a play, but is it a pace-up game for him to utilize his athleticism? I would probably not be getting to Diallo today in any sort of way. Would you?
Yeah, I don't want any. Play DK. Bryn Forbes is 33. Yeah. I think at roughly the same positions. I also think Diallo is shooting guard only and Forbes is both, I think is what I'm getting there. So Bryn Forbes is going to play his, 22 to 26 minutes, depending exactly how the rotation works out for him. And he's also 3,300. So I get not liking the matchup particularly, but last 4 games, 22, 26, 24, 24 minutes. 12, 14, 14, 23 fantasy points. That's not exciting, but it's still more exciting than what I would see or expect out of Hamidou, no relation to Check Diallo.
I wholeheartedly agree. Cannot disagree.
Yep. So no, I wouldn't end up on that one.
No. So
good super chat. Spent $6 or whatever it was and saved yourself however much money you're going to spend.
Yeah,
on
I hope we talked you out of it. And if Diallo goes crazy, I'll delete this video.
It's just everybody's in. Well, no, Turd Ferguson is out. Everybody but Turd Ferguson is in basically, and Robertson's been out for a long time. But I would look for a number of other value guys. I would rather play Lonnie Walker at 3K flat. I would rather play lots of guys who I can see much more likely getting to a ceiling. For Hamidou, you really need that game to viciously blow out him, play the entire fourth quarter, and still do better than I would expect. But you need a lot of things to break your way.
Even the entire fourth quarter might not matter for old Ham.
Yeah. I mean, he's better than Terrence Ferguson.
They're all pretty much the same person.
they really have, for a couple of years now, too. There was a while I was like, I'll get Westbrook out of here. Maybe one of these guys. No, still just hanging out, not doing much. I mean, it's $500 less than Mike Conley, who is still Mike Conley, and I think a conservative projection would put it 20 fantasy points or something. So spending money on Hamidou Diallo is I get the theory, but I just don't think the upside is there more often than not. I'm curious if any of the Pistons guys are that low also. So now spending way more time thinking if position is not an issue. Certainly Hartenstein, if he randomly starts, but Capela is going to play, so that's not going to happen. But Cristiano Felicio, gonna play some 15 to 26 minutes as a backup, and what's actually a pretty good spot against Indiana. So I would go there first if you're looking for 3,300. With no Miles Turner, Goga at 3,100, coming off a dreadful game, but again, pretty nice spot. I'd much rather get to Goga. Might just be last game. I believe he played 5 minutes. It was unexciting. Where I was like, he's minimum price. I kind of like him. He should get the backup center minutes. He got all 5 of them.
Yes, he did.
He played 5 minutes in the first half, and I'm like, oh, like the last 2 games where we had Turner out and Sabonis in starting at center. We had some time where Sabonis moved to the 4 and they put Goga out there, and Goga played like 19, 20, 21 minutes, like a few games in a row. So I was like, I like Goga minimum price. I think he might get 20 minutes here. Like I didn't love him, but I do Caleb Swanigan too. Caleb Swanigan is minimum price and should get all the non-Whiteside center minutes. They traded away Tolliver. He's taken that role.
Yeah. Any love for Patty Mills in a FanDuel GPP that came in from Short Sleep 01?
I couldn't get to love, but I think it's a tolerable thing to do. Again, I think he's point guard there. I want to make sure I'm getting this right because, he is point guard. Well, let me look at the cheap point guard value options on FanDuel and discuss them for a hot second. I would, again, you have Conley at 3,800 again. So difficult from any raw projection sense there, but Conley's going to be one of the chalkier value plays on the day here. So, I mean, my answer, regardless of how the rest of this works out, is probably going to be I'm fine with it. It's not someone I can advocate for. He would project similarly to Forbes. I mean, all these guys end up looking really close to the same there. I might rather Kobe White. That would be the other guy in that spot I take the shot at. And obviously, if you can come up with $300, you get to either White or Murray or Reggie Jackson on FanDuel, all of whom are 44, and all of whom do feel a little bit better for me. But so of those, I'd probably be most excited either White or Jackson. I actually like Derek White a little more than DeJounte Murray.
Okay,
which isn't surprising. He's outplayed him for a little while now.
One final
on the news tank. We're 2 minutes out. I'm going.
Yeah, one final question from William Field, super chat. Last one, my guys. Why is Rudy Gay 3,600 on DK? Am I missing something? He just hasn't been playing as of late.
He plays 18, 21 minutes and goes out there and is fine, but isn't a focal point of the offense. But I like that play. I don't think 24, 25 minutes is crazy. They do bring him out more often when defense in the 4 area is more relevant for the team. He's still an above average defender, and you get more lapses out of guys like Lyles and etc. And obviously not having Aldridge there can mean minutes and usage. So I'm cautiously optimistic with Rudy Gay, but it's because he's just not the Rudy Gay of Memphis or Toronto or pick a team.
Very true. Very true.
Kyrie will play and start.
Lock in 1 minute, guys. If you don't have those lineups in yet, honestly, what in the world are you waiting for? Get them in now. Now.
Do it now.
But we're not leaving it lock. We're sticking around for an extra half hour to talk some super draft.
Yeah.
And
a couple minutes of ownership, maybe. We have two 7. I said maybe a little ownership first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then segue over because
do we have one? Is it just Pacers Bulls?
I think it's 2 games. I want to. Oh no, it's just Pacers. Yeah, they're all. There's 2 at 7:30, but both the New York games are 7:30, so it's just Pacers and Bulls. Should be a little anticlimactic, but we can quickly see how many people spent 9 and change for slow mo.
I'm gonna get that pulled up now. So I will say right away, best of luck to everybody tonight on your FanDuel and DraftKings lineups. We are about to transition a little bit to Super Draft, but at the very least, we need to play a quick game of Daddy Likes for Pacers Bulls.
No.
Because we are 4 seconds from lock.
Oh, my God.
All right. Opening up the $20 on DraftKings I got there a half second too early. Son of a bee sting.
Yeah, I didn't have a ton to say about the Bulls.
No,
Like,
it's not that kind. It's a weird slate.
Yeah, it was a very, very rounding some corners slate, to be sure. There was the Bulls are interesting. I mean, I mentioned Thad. I guess that was the only one I felt like I was more optimistic than people would be at default. I guess I mentioned Felicio as a value guy on the slate where there isn't a lot of value in a matchup that's actually pretty strong. Chris Dunn's been good recently, but 5,500 Chris Dunn's really hard to get excited about in a bad matchup. Levine's priced down a little bit for the matchup. But yeah, the Bulls side of the ball was difficult for me to get swollen over.
Trying to pull up the CSV, still working on it. It's not
Okay,
flipping
I
over
will
to
sit back and
the
prepare
contest quite
for-
yet. Okay, there we
prepare
go.
for the ownership.
Export to CSV, save, open, and here we go. Quick game. Daddy likes one game, 1 out of 5. 1 out of 6, rather.
Sixer. Solid sixer. It's 6, not 5. I yell that at my wife all the time.
I gotcha. 4 guys showing up, 10% or higher. Can you name the 4 guys?
Domantas Sabonis.
That would be correct.
There's no one else I'm solid about. Are all these guys like 10, 12, 14? Because I don't. There's no one else here where I expected to really catch much.
Not exactly sizable, I'll say that.
My wife also says that to me. All right, sorry. Let's go with Thad should get there.
That would be correct.
This is incredibly boring. This can't be. This is not good television, I guess is my point.
Super Draft, we're coming. Don't worry, I promise.
I apologize, Super Draft. This is my vanity exercise. Will be over shortly. Oh, it's really ugly. I don't think Sato gets there. I don't think people spend up for Levine. So, Demo and Thad. 2 more. Okay. It's some combination of like Lamb, Warren, Dunn. I don't think that many people would have played Dougie after. I'll go Lamb.
Jeremy Lamb is not one of those players.
I'll go Warren.
TJ Warren is one of those players. 3 down, 1 to go.
I'll go Chris Dunn.
Chris Dunn at 9.9, rounding up to 10, and those are your 4. Sabonis 17, Thad Young 17, TJ Warren 11, Chris Dunn 10, Levine 7.5, Jeremy Lamb 5, Malcolm Brogdon 5. Everybody else a bit lower. Did anyone play themselves?
How much $6,000 Oladipo?
1.07%.
Yeah.
Miles Turner, 0.04%. Congratulations, you played yourself. TJ Leaf, 0.02%.
That's never the answer. He could be starting, and that's never the answer. Well, maybe today that would have been the answer.
0.01 on Laurie Markkinen.
So I had a long-standing thing where I had my Mendoza for DFS was TJ Leaf as my standard for mediocrity.
Yeah.
And we had a fun game one night where I think in our premium Slack, and there were 100 people, or it might have been, I think it was actually Periscope. So I had, 200-300 people on Periscope. And I played sort of an honor system game where I went, okay, I will look this up. Name players who have played at least, we put a nominal number on it, I'll say something like 1,000 minutes in their NBA career, and score less fantasy points per minute than TJ Leaf. And everyone who can name one, I give like $10 to until you collectively get 3 misses. And it was obviously honor system, but it's a fun game. You and I should play the TJ Leaf game sometime. And we looked the other day, and I think Dougie McDermott is literally like 0.01 higher. He's like 0.66 instead of 0.65. I don't know how TJ Leaf's, it was last year, so I don't know if TJ Leaf's number has gone up or down in his brief recessitive. But it was a day where TJ Leaf was really popular as a chalk option. I'm like, you don't understand, he's terrible, and he had the best game of his life. Just that's going to happen once in a while. But Anyhow, we should play the TJ Leaf game sometime. You know, another show you and I should do maybe in about a week.
Trade deadline.
Yeah, it's coming. It's like
Can't wait.
it's the 8th. It's the 8th, I think.
I can't wait.
Yeah, so like
I live for it.
9 days, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm all about trade deadline. I don't think we'll be as good of a year as last year, but I still enjoyed the process.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
Who's your number one guy, most likely guy to get traded in the entire league right now? I put a gun to your head and say name.
That's an easy answer. It's Nene.
It's Nene.
Yes.
Because the cap something or whatsoever.
Yep.
I'm changing my question.
He's got a really
gun to your
wonky
head.
contract that the player they had to step in and talk about and change. So
God, that's right. That's right.
1,000% going somewhere.
Okay. Well, I'll change mine. Which player, for the purpose of playing basketball, do you think is the most likely to get traded this year because he's a purpose for someone? Mine would be actually
Marcus
one of the
Morris.
guys. I was the same. All right, no, we're on the same page. That was my answer.
Yeah.
I was like, I just think of a million teams who want him, and the team has like 11 people to cover him with redundancy, and they're not winning anything. So the Knicks. Now, don't get me wrong. If there was a team too stupid to trade Marcus Morris in this situation, it would be the Knicks. Like, he should be traded. He's blocking your young talent from getting time. You can get a great price for him. 3 contending teams at least are going to want him. He's like, it's like the most obvious trade situation ever. But it's the Knicks, so I'm not saying 100% chance, but dude should certainly get himself traded.
Absolutely. You know who's not going to get themselves traded? Jakob Poeltl and his 1.85 multiplier on Super Draft today. My number one Super Draft play of the day.
Yeah, I would think so. So I think aiming for 60 is a good practice with your production times multiplier.
Sure.
And he gets there. So I think that works good. What kind of modifier do you have on Sabonis? I'm hoping you have like 1.3 or something. By the way, the short version of Daddy Like was all those numbers are fine, except Sabonis to me is really too low, even on DK. I think I would have Sabonis projected, I think maybe well into the 50s at this point. Like I'm a pretty big Demo fan in that spot.
I have the target set at 70 right now for each spot today.
Okay, that's probably like best lineup on the slate. I have a feeling.
Yes.
It's obviously going to change slate to slate. Like, I think that is optimistic but doable.
Yeah,
like
tops in a GPP.
Right. Okay. No, I think that's fine. Yeah, I will get that. Someone's asking Pacers and Bulls, and if I could clarify what I said. The 2 games the Pacers and the Bulls played this year, I talked about it, so I gotta be able to look it up when you ask. Let me see if I got this right. First of all, let me confirm there were 2, because that's top of my head, but I'm pretty sure. Yes, there were 2. In the first one,
I'm going to run a Super Draft Crunch as well now. Basic, 25% randomness, 3 uniques. We'll see where we end up.
I like it. So there was no Sabonis in the first game. Miles Turner had 27 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks starting at center. In the other game, I think they were both out. Let's see if I remember that right. Yes, in the other game, they started a beast lineup of Brogdon, Lamb, Sampson, Warren, and Goga. Goga played only 19 minutes before fouling out, but accrued 9 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, and 4 blocks in that time. So that would not have been disappointing at minimum price. So yeah, good spot for center, blah, 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 blah. But since you asked, there it is.
I'm getting a much different guy than I expected, but I'm not too surprised.
I'm loading up the Super Draft lobby.
So I could hit you with a couple fun multipliers that I think would be guys that would be pretty core for you. Right now, 1,210 people in the contest. Still have about 700 spots to go. Please head over to superdraft.io. Sign up using the promo code AWESEMO. Get yourself $20 in super cash. And our Super Draft projections are free today. So you don't even have to fly blind. You don't even need an optimizer. You're just trying to essentially pick the highest projected guys. You don't have to worry about salary. There's nothing to, in theory, optimize.
I love Westbrook in the tournament because everyone's going to click on Harden or Lillard at 1.1 or Irving at 1.2.
DeMar DeRozan at 1.4 looking pretty tasty to me.
Yeah, hard not to like that. I didn't talk about the Spurs as much as I wanted to, but I guess it's because I didn't have it. Like I liked DeRozan, could have explained for quite a while, and rewatched 2 of the 3 games that Aldridge had missed this year. But I would have ended up saying, yeah, I'm like the price was up, but I still like DeRozan. 2 of those 3 games took 23, 25 shots. The real ceiling is there, so that was fine. So no issue with that.
I am 28 lineups short of a 500 lineup crunch, and then I'm going to see where my exposures would be if I were maxing the Super Draft contest of 58 entries. You guys still have 20 minutes before Super Draft lock, and I want to thank the 1,579 people that are still with us right now. And thanks to the 867 likes. We didn't get to 1,000, but we certainly shamed our competitors.
I'm on the. I don't get angry at anyone. I'm a fan of the imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. It's not like everything we do we invented. Guys, I have an idea. Let's do a show before it. So
I do like seeing a tweet go out saying that they were sorry that they didn't get to their 250 likes or whatever. Though
did that happen?
It did happen.
Well,
so
I don't think it is entirely braggadocio or unreasonable to state that this is now the place to be, both in I think quality of content, not referring to myself at all, but having you and Adam and Lofty and those guys brilliant. Both the quality I think is highest, the quantity I think is highest, and I think the market has gone that way that if you actually followed the number of people watching all the shows in the industry, that we've ripped the top spot away. So bravo to all the people who do a lot to make that happen, and I'm way down that list because we have a lot of people working very hard both sides of the camera. So
a lot of people behind the scenes that people have no idea are working as hard as they are. So kudos to everybody involved. I'm proud of y'all. Proud of me. Proud of you. We're just proud. Clear across the board. Let's load in 500 Super Draft lineups. I want to know what my exposures would have been. Now I got to change Jakob Poeltl's name, which is always a blast.
One of the reasons I really like Super Draft is because, and I've said this a few times, so I want to elaborate on it a little bit, is I think it's good for all types of players.
Yeah.
In that someone who is, I think it's ideal for you because I still think there's room to just get there with projections. I have an essay I've been writing for about a year, and it's about 20 pages long now, but it's about the sort of the limitations of projections.
Yeah.
I think projections are wonderful and essential, but the easiest analogy for me to make is that projections are like sneakers in basketball.
Yeah.
You can play need them. You can try to go without it. It's not going to go well. And you can have better, but almost everybody's got them, and almost everyone has pretty good ones at this point. So you want to make sure you have them. You want to make sure they're excellent, but it's not enough to make you good. You can't just be like, I have the best projection. If you told me,
but you don't want them to be big baller brand.
That's true. You also don't want the Ball family to have anything to do with creating them as well.
No.
But if someone said to me, if we could verifiably prove that person X had, and I've seen people spat on this over Twitter, the most accurate projections, however you would determine that to be, but somehow this guy projected every player's price and every player's every player's projection and production every single day. We looked over it for the year, and this guy was the most accurate. And he was like, that was enough to make me profitable. I don't believe it. I refuse to believe it even hypothetically, conceptually, because just the degree of variation between that and the next best and the next best and the next best and the 10th best, there's just not that much differential. When I go top of my head versus your projections, we're usually within 5%. And your projections versus Alex's versus Adam's versus lots of really smart guys. And I'm sure one of them is best. But basketball is such a predictable sport that the degree of improvement that you're getting over the next best guy is relevant, and you want the best, but not near enough to be again, I was talking about the 15% hill you're trying to climb before. It's not 10%. Might be 1, might be 2. I think it can help you a lot, but you need ownership and process and
certainly do.
A lot of other things. And Super Draft.
I think that I have all 500 lineups in and fixed. I do. So if I were playing 58 lineups today, looking like DeMar DeRozan at the top of the heap for me. 1.4 multiplier. I've got him with a 22% chance of hitting that target of 70 if I'm being aggressive with it. If I drop that to, let's say 60, does that work?
Okay.
If I drop that to 60, DeMar with a 46% chance of hitting that mark. That feels about right. I've got him projected for just north of 40 fantasy points at a 1.4 multiplier. I like it. I like it a lot.
Yeah. No, I think that's good.
I'm probably a little high on James Harden, normal multiplier. Kyrie Irving, quite high, 1.2. Jake Puddle, 1.85 multiplier. He's going to be wildly popular.
Bogdan at 1.75. I think it should make your top 20 somewhere, I would think. Although maybe I just
is 26th. He did make one of my lineups.
Okay, that's interesting. I'm curious how many guys you have that's much.
No, I didn't. Take a deep dive into settings or ownership caps or anything like that. I kind of just let it rip blind.
Yeah.
So he is 26th of 26th of the guys that got into one of the 58 lineups.
That seems fair.
But yeah, highest odds of hitting that target: Jake Puddle, James Harden, who we've already discussed, Kyrie Irving, DeMar DeRozan, Dame Lillard, Hassan Whiteside at 1.2, CJ McCollum at 1.5. That's going to be a tough one to ignore.
Yeah, no, that's really nice as well. I'm looking at some of the other value guys. I was going to say, just based on the particular dynamics of basketball, I think it would be interesting if they raised the multiplier cap a little bit more. You obviously can't go crazy with it because you will occasionally get Zion, who maybe stayed at 2x a little longer than he should have, and other value guys. You can't get too crazy, but 2x on value guys is going to make it really hard to get there, because if you're saying you're trying to get 70, you need to project these guys for 35.
Yep.
So if you can open the space a little bit, maybe raise the multiplier cap to, I don't know if 2.5 would be too much, but like 2.2, 2.25, then it's like, this is a value guy. I think he gets me 25. I can try that, because there's just a lot of guys who are sitting at the 2x where it's like, God, I just don't think you can get me the 35 real I need for guy to necessarily get me there. So
we got a question in YouTube chat. It's not about Super Draft, but I think it's a really good question to answer. It said, one question I've always had: why doesn't Fanduel show ownership for every player since they have no late swap? Because there are slates. There are slates after 7:00.
Yeah, it's because of their late slates. Is exactly the case. So if you you could look at the main slate right now and see how exposed everyone is in the other 5 of the 6 games, and that would radically change the way you would play the late slates.
Yeah. I mean, for a while,
it's because of the
sites used to show it, and that was very important information to the people that didn't understand what that meant.
It was instructive, to be sure.
And it was big in NFL for like Thursday to Monday type slates, where that would lock and you would know where everybody was for Sunday games. It's good stuff.
Sabonis doesn't have a rebound yet in 5 minutes. It's a little distressing. Bothers me.
I'm not happy about it either. So you said you had Westbrook as your highest projected guy today. He had a 1x multiplier. I'm assuming you would have been fairly high on him, and probably north of the field on Super Draft today.
I would think so. Like it's looking at the. Hold on, let me pull up my actual what I projected these guys for, because I had to make a lot of manual adjustments today.
Where'd that go? Rose, Brown, Snell, Sekou, Drummond starting lineup today. So Jackson back to the bench.
Rose, Brown, Sekou, Jackson, Drummond. Okay, so starting Rose next to Jackson.
No. Jackson back to the bench.
Oh, so Rose I'm out there. Rose, Brown, Sekou,
Snell.
Drummond, Snell. Okay, I missed Snell there. Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Doesn't do a ton for me. Good to see that he's in there.
Yeah.
We like my numbers are pretty different from everyone else's, but I had Russell Westbrook at 59 fantasy points today as my top scorer. I had Harden at 57.5, I think.
Okay. Guys, 1,655 people are in this contest now. We are the overlay is evaporating. 300 more people, and this will fill. You have 10 minutes and 50 seconds. We greatly appreciate it. Go throw in another entry by using the promo code AWESEMO for $20 of super cash on your first $100 deposit. Take a look at some of these other multipliers and see who stands out.
Oh, here's the So Alex has Russell Westbrook at 51 fantasy points, and James Harden at 58. As do you. Wow. It's okay. So I've really gone off the reservation here. I had to manually change my numbers and go back and look at how it affected shot share and target share and minutes and the whole thing. But
Russell Westbrook's usage rate has been creeping up as of late. Harden's has not been doing the same.
It's worth pointing out
which direction you want to go with that.
Would you agree this is an exceptional matchup?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, since you both have them projected around 51 fantasy points, Hasn't he beaten 51 fantasy points 9 of his last 10 games? Or something? I mean, like,
I
I'm
will
not
trust you to say yes there. I don't get the
I'm
sense you're
pulling
asking me
that
that
out of
question.
I'm pulling
because
that
you're
out of my
tricking me.
ass.
I don't
I'm
know,
gonna,
but
haha, it was 2. Let me click on Russell Westbrook game log.
it's not. Yeah, it's not none. I'm confident in that.
It is 7 in a row, and then failed 3 times in a row. But 7 in a row is still a fairly significant number. Just to say, if you say I think he gets 51, I'd be like, well, he's done better than that 7 times in a row, and this I consider to be literally. If you give me matchups for him, this would be like third. Like, I really like him against this team. So I mean, and Portland is one of the worst defenses in the NBA at this point. So yeah, I'd rather play the Hawks, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I do. 51 to me does feel conservative. He is routinely blitzing the crap out of that number. So some things in his game have been, unsustainable. He's had more good free throw shooting games than you usually get out of Westbrook, for example. Last 3 games, 4 out of 5 from the line, 13 out of 13 from the line. That's Harden's shit. That is not Westbrook's.
Yeah, that's not normal.
Yeah.
Would you expect them? Would you expect Harden to be able to counter that defense as he sees it more and more?
Well, what it is I mean, they really sell out against it to a really significant degree, and you just get him on one side of the court with 2.5 guys, and sometimes 3.5 guys, if Capela is smart and stays on the right side of the dunker spot. So I mean, I think I like James Harden more than most players as an offensive player. I think he is truly superlatively gifted. I understand being rubbed the wrong way by the fact that so much of his crap is drawing fouls. I mean, again, that is not the beautiful game. So I get that from people, but I'm a massive fan of his. But there's just a certain point at which it just doesn't make sense for him to do it. Like, he is a reasonably selfish player, but he's not an idiot. So it just doesn't make sense for him to run into it. And if you look at those previous games, it's not just production. It also has a lot to do with, shot volume that those guys take. In the last game, Harden took 12 shots, 12, and 8 free throws. Those are minuscule numbers for him in 36 minutes. Westbrook took 22 shots to his 12 and 12 free throws to his 8. So my concern with it, or my if I wanted to advocate for Harden, would be that they don't do it again.
Right.
That they go like, okay, I'm not sure this is the best way to do this.
Right.
But again, they won the last time they did it. They got demolished the first game. I think they lost by like 30. I will look.
Jakar Sampson season, apparently. 18-10 in entries. We're 100 short, guys. You have 7 minutes to go. Let's fill this contest.
I ranked him. Sabonis, 4 points and a rebound. He's got a rebound. Am I happy now? That doesn't seem good for
Malcolm Brogdon leading the charge with 11.5.
Kind of crappy game. 16-12.
We've got 2 fires and a snowflake. Malcolm Brogdon, Jakar Sampson, and Zach LaVine.
Zach being the snowflake?
Correct.
Well, the younger players do tend to be more Democratic, whereas the older players tend to vote Republican. There's a real split in the league. That was me doing that.
I got you. I'm catching what you're pitching on that one.
Thank you.
Ja Morant, 1.5 multiplier. I like. Joe Val, 1.4. I like. CJ McCollum 1.5 is probably my favorite of anybody that's near the top, outside of the weird Jake Puddle 1.85 with LaMarcus Aldridge being out.
Yeah, I would have tournament interesting guys who can really spike a ceiling, because there's an interesting sort of metagame mathematics too, because stuff is multiplied as opposed to counting on its face. So there is an odd relationship between variance and multiplier, in that you want your really high multiplier guys to have sort of it's so like I would like I don't know, Jaren Jackson Jr. is probably like a 1.4 or 1.5, but still carries a giant. Yeah, right. So like he still is a guy who carries a big ceiling in a matchup with the Knicks. So like I think but
big fan of his as well. Boyan 1.6, Melo 1.6. Those are.
I'm curious. Do you have the lineup that won yesterday? Randall 1.3.
I can pull that up. Yeah. Shout out to
because
DFS
I'm
and
guessing you will get more studs than value. Like, so we're trying to give advice here. I would not play a lot of value in this format, just based on what I'm seeing. Now I don't know how much of a
you mean like value, like the Trevor Ariza type value.
Well, I mean, when you get right, that's like, it's really hard to, even with like the 2x, it seems like you'd very rarely get there, which I think is fun and it's good for the site because you want people to be able to you want to cater it more to the casual players who are always going to be at somewhat of a disadvantage because they're casual players, and that you can just pick 6 good players and have a really good shot. And it is to a certain degree priced that way. But other than weird things like the Jake Pirtle situation and was the Zion yesterday was a 2x. I remember what I was looking at.
He was 91% owned.
Yeah. He didn't have a great game, but he would have been still good enough. I bet he's in the winner. Especially
he was in the winner. I can tell you that. I'm pulling it up right now.
Cool.
I have it up on the screen.
I'm guessing it's big men, and by big men I mean low multiplier guys. So just because if we're saying play this, even though they're our sponsor, I want you to do well. So
yeah.
Boyan at 1.6, the elites at 1.55.
Okay, here we go. 561 fantasy points took it down.
How many spots are in a lineup there? Is it
7? So that's 80 a spot.
80.14. Yeah.
So the lineup was Drew Holiday at 1.35.
Woo! That would have been a number. So that's like an 85 burger or whatever.
He went for 86.4 at 23% ownership. Eric Bledsoe at 1.65.
So 100 they must have had some terrible players in this lineup because those first guys got way on top of 80.
Bledsoe went for 99 at 80% ownership. So Bradley Beal 1.2x, he went for 73 at 15% ownership. Gordon Hayward at 1.5 went for 67, he was 7% owned.
Yeah.
Chris Middleton at 1.45x, he went for 109.47.
I was about to say 110 or something. Yeah.
He was 63% owned.
Yeah.
Zion Williamson at 2x, as we mentioned, went for 53.5. 91% owned, so it really didn't matter. And then DeAndre Ayton at 1.4x, 72.5, 36% owned.
That is a good one.
One Adam Ship My Money Share finished 6th in this competition yesterday.
Did he?
Bledsoe, Booker, Holiday, Zion, Jimmy Butler, Chris Middleton, DeAndre Ayton.
Jimmy got him.
51.1.
Can't hit a lot.
No. Where do we stand, guys? Where do we stand? Are we close? Can we fill this bad boy yet? Again, one last shot. Awesemo is the promo code if you want $20 in super cash. We are at... Ooh! It's filled!
I think we got it.
Woo!
Filled it. Two days in a row. Nice job. I feel bad talking about look at all the overlay and then working as hard as we can to kill that overlay. Like, I gotta admit, I have conflicted feelings about that. I'm just doing my job, everybody. I have conflicted feelings about that.
Well, you should be entering if you think there's overlay. And if there's not, I hope that our advice leads you to the promised land.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's a win-win.
It's not like we're like, hey, get the overlay and bye.
And it's gone. It's like a South Park episode. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take your money and invest it in this multi-mutual, and it's gone.
So shout out to everybody that got in there. Josh gets a bonus if it fills. I wish.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
That'd be good.
You think I'm shilling now?
Josh has got.
I'll be like a boxer in 2004. I'll get that stuff tattooed on my chest.
And shit. Let's say you look like a NASCAR driver would be.
I'll get that Super Draft logo tattooed on my face like Mike Tyson.
Yeah, exactly. Betfair.com, big letters.
Every inch of skin on my body is for sale to the right bidder. I promise you that. But
my wife says that too.
You need to get in there. Well, that contest is filled. There's still plenty of contests to go around. They do have the $1,000 and one, a couple entries short of lock.
You got 20 seconds.
You do have 20 seconds. $1 entry fee, so we can get that one. And then the $300 guaranteed double up isn't going to fill. I think that you could probably see yourself getting some pretty nice opportunities for like overlay in smaller contests. I mean, if you can get overlay in a double up, that is just as important. You might not.
It's so good.
You might not. It's not going to be. You're not going to be making millions on this, but scratch and claw your way to the top. But we are locked for Super Draft, and that is it for us. Coming up at 8:30 PGA Live before lock, Ben Rasa and Jason Roslin talking Waste Management Open. Ben is in Premium Slack right now in the Office Hours channel, so if you're not a sub, you should sign up right now. Come ask him questions before the show starts. I've got about 45 minutes to eat dinner. I'm going to shovel that down my throat. Shout out to the salmon pinwheel I've got, I believe, prepared by the old wife downstairs.
Ooh, nice.
Eddie,
You have an old
anything
wife?
else?
You have an old wife too? I like older women.
I do not have an old wife. She is a month younger than I am.
Wow.
But we will be a year different shortly. Birthday coming up soon.
You're both hitting birthdays?
Yes.
Well, let me know if I can cover you for either or.
2 weeks from today. I'm not going anywhere, buddy. I am doing that show with you.
And trade show. Yeah, trade show. You get the birthdays like on your trade deadline. That's the best. I'm going to get streamers and everything.
Yeah. So, yeah, I will be here with bells on February 12th, 2 weeks from today.
Awesome.
Shout out to Abraham Lincoln on that day as well. Good luck, guys. Thanks for sticking around. We will talk to you again later. Adios.